welcome to another episode of Panel on Panels, the podcast about all things comics and comics related. I'm your host, John Campbell. With me, as always, Mike Gargoni.
Yes, indeed, that is me.
And joining us, of course, again, Donovan Eilert.
Hi, guys. How's it going?
I said joining us, of course, again, as if you're like a frequent guest, but you're always here.
Well, let's hope.
He's a constant guest star, John.
Yeah. Thank you.
We could drop him at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah. You've made that very clear on multiple occasions.
Thought.
That's why I watched Gorgoni's car yesterday.
Because you're the first on the credit roll, and then I'm the
right,
and then special appearance
with.
You get the with.
He's buried in there, deep in the title of the show.
Yeah, I don't mind.
You're like Anthony Stewart Head in the 6th and 7th seasons of Buffy.
Yeah, you're like, he's
guest star.
definitely there occasionally, sometimes, and everybody loves it. So, thank you.
He was always excited when he showed up.
Oh, yeah. He's the... No, I'm not going to say it. But, yes,
This isn't the Buffy cast.
No, not yet. It will eventually devolve into one.
I believe we could probably devote a whole episode to the Buffy comics, if nothing else.
We might. There's another one. There's another
Thinking
episode
about
idea for the...
Getting buff.
Yeah, getting buff. That's it.
Getting buff.
Perfect. So today's topic is comic book movies.
Comic book movies.
Yeah,
just like Buffy.
Yeah, just like that was a movie, then a show, then a comic book.
And then a comic book based on the movie, but set in the show's continuity.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you want to get really crazy, even like that. Obviously, this is sort of the way people are starting to know these characters and these stories is primarily through movies now. So, I mean, we would be remiss if we didn't touch on that, obviously. So
Good use of the word remiss.
5 points.
I try.
I wouldn't push it to 5 points. Like maybe 3.
Okay. All right,
3
I'll take it.
points.
I'll take it.
The council says.
says once again, our show's Thesaurus.
I try.
Yeah.
That's my favorite kind of dinosaur, I think.
The Thesaurus.
The Thesaurus was a proud and noble creature that
Most
was constantly correcting the other dinosaurs.
Yeah, which is why he was pushed onto that meteorite first.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the first to go for sure. For sure. No, so we something I wanted
Comic book movies.
Yeah, comic
yes.
book movies.
You say that they're how these characters are the most well known now, and
I think
I'm not
that's
going to lie.
true.
There's like no, you're absolutely correct, and I can't deny that there's maybe a little bit of nerd rage behind that.
Let's talk about that nerd rage. Let's get into a therapy moment here.
Okay.
And dig into
Let's go Psych 101 on this.
Mike Gargoni's nerd rage about comic book.
Well, I think this is a piece of every. I'm not going to paint that broad of a picture in terms of saying every nerd, because there's so many different types of us these days.
But specifically comic book nerds.
But comic book nerds, like we feel a certain ownership over these characters.
I think
and
that's
like we look at the people who's like, oh yeah, I love Captain America, and it's like, yeah, what'd you think of the like Brubaker's run? And they go, what?
Right.
And it's like we're talking about one of the most quintessential pieces of this character's story, and all they know them from is the most recent Marvel movies, which is fine. Those are great movies,
And based on that Brubaker run.
based on that Brubaker run.
Yeah.
And I love those movies, but there is a certain amount of like, there's a little voice in me that goes like, you don't know, you weren't there.
And the frustrating thing for me, too, is you don't see a trend of, as these movies are successful, the comics are like getting better or being enriched somehow. They feel like they're just bringing in characters from the movies or shows into them.
I don't agree with that statement at all.
Especially
Really?
where Marvel is concerned.
I think Marvel has done.
whoa.
I mean, Marvel has just continued to excel in the last couple of years.
Yeah, but do you
DC,
think
that's
that's
exactly what's happening.
Do you think
but
that's-
Marvel?
but what-
I feel like they're really broadening up in terms of allowing the creative types who are writing these characters to really create these quintessential storylines that are being developed right now, whether it be with Captain Marvel or Hawkeye.
Well, and you look at Hawkeye is probably the best example of this working out in terms of they created a Hawkeye comic because he was in the Avengers movie, but then they got a really talented guy to write it
With Matt Fraction.
and let him do whatever he wanted. And he created this incredibly original, brilliant piece of superhero
I
storytelling.
still haven't read that, but again, in my
I've got the
experience,
first 3 trades right
well, I might be borrowing that, ladies and gentlemen. Now you know. Now you know.
Donovan's recommendations for next week.
Yes, will be all of Gorgoni's comics.
That's a bit of a list, sir.
Yeah, I'm not going to sleep. But I mean, I don't know. I don't think the trend is maybe as exaggerated as you guys. I feel like I haven't seen that happen. I feel like they're progressing and they're getting better, which is great.
I don't
but
feel
think
like that's the sales are necessarily reflected.
They are, in fact, are very much not. You would think that. I mean,
What are people reading if they're watching the movies and then want to read comics? Are they reading old stuff?
I
Are they
think there's a
reading-
very small faction of people where that's actually true.
Yeah,
I
they
was going to say, I think most people don't even think about it. They're just like, good movie. and they leave.
Well,
Moving
or
on.
they ask me, "What happened? Was this really there?" Okay, great. I know now.
Yeah,
Well-
beyond asking you or a quick Wikipedia search, I don't really think they're
Damn you,
getting.
Wikipedia.
That-
That's not true. I love you.
If you weren't
Yeah,
so smart.
I was gonna say that helps me read comics sometimes. Who is this character?
Oh yeah. 1961. Okay, I got it now.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Crazy quilt.
Who
Sure.
was married to who?
Actually, much of the things I say on the show, I would not be able to say without the aid of Wikipedia.
Whoa, are you going to support
John,
Wikipedia?
you're just kind of revealing the wizard behind the curtain at this point.
Wow.
I'm not really comfortable with that.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Do I even know you?
What is going on?
Yeah, it's true. But so comic book movies, they've been around for a while. This is
No.
no, but I'm saying they used to be. We talked a little bit about this. I think in our Spider-Man episode where we were talking about. There's sort of always
Let's
been.
hope these are released in that order.
I think they will be. We can make sure of that actually. But there's always been attempts to do this for I mean, as long as there have been movies, there have been sort of comic book characters, or at least pulp characters. You can go back to like silent things like Douglas Fairbanks' The Mark of Zorro and stuff like that.
And stuff like The Shadow and
Right.
Rocketeer.
Yeah. Well,
The Phantom.
not the Rocket. The Rocketeer was in the 80s.
Okay, we're going to wave back with that, but
Well, no, but the Rocketeer.
John's talking about the history of film, Donovan.
what is that? What this podcast is, John?
Yeah. But yeah, so yes, it is now. It's I suckered you guys in. It was a trap.
Damn it.
We did so many episodes about comic
fell
books
for it.
before I suckered
Now
you
I
into
know
a show about the
nothing.
history of
So
film.
just keep listening to John
let's
talk.
spend the next 20 minutes talking about Rise of a Nation.
Yeah, Birth of a Nation. Yeah,
Birth of a Nation,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, that's exactly.
Well, Rise is after Birth of a Nation. We're still waiting for that sequel.
Yeah, come on. It's been 100 years. Come on. Where's the sequel? It's even more racist.
Yeah, come on.
And then
That's what
Caesar shows up with all the ape. Wait, I'm confused. This might not be a different movie. I'm
I
talking
think
about.
it's Rise of the
no, you're right.
Nation
That's
of-
it. That's
Okay.
it. All right. No, so people have been obviously attempting to tell these types of stories on film before, but it's only been in fairly recent history
Last
that,
20 years or so.
that they've started to get good.
Good and crazy successful.
Right. Very successful. So beyond, I mean, so obviously there's the technology aspect of this, but this kind of leads me to my opening question to you guys, which is what makes a good comic book movie?
That's an awesome question. I think we have different answers than people who don't read comics.
Yes, that's true, and that's. But I mean,
Because-
let's talk about it from the perspective of people who do read comics.
Sure, I mean,
Do we want to turn this into a little bit of a mini film lecture? Because we can talk about what makes a good movie.
No, I mean, I think we can. Let's skip ahead in the conversation
Okay.
beyond what makes a good movie.
Sure.
I mean-
we can get a little bit more focused than that.
All right.
I mean, the first thing you check is that true to the comics or close enough where the creative realm took over a
This
bit?
is kind of where I thought it was going to start, which is faithfulness to the source material.
Yeah.
How important is that?
It's about tapping into the spirit of
Yeah.
the source material. I don't think necessarily getting it verbatim is as important. We talk about a movie like 300, where visually they're nailing what that movie looks like,
Yeah.
and what the comic book looks like.
Yeah.
Same with Watchmen, I think.
Watchmen also.
Well, I
does
was just
a
going to
pretty
say
good
though, but then you go. 300 is very much about capturing the visuals and the spirit of that comic, but that is very much a Zack Snyder film.
Oh yeah.
Beyond, I mean, it's extrapolating from Miller. It starts with that as a basis.
Yes.
Then you look at something like Watchmen, which is almost verbatim the comic.
Yeah. Except,
With massive chunks.
Well, with a few
Lopped
things,
out.
of
Sure.
course, changed.
but they're trying to go for,
But
like,
it's-
what the comic was getting across, not necessarily every important space squid that was in that or not.
No, yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is, you look at Watchmen, and he's pulling panels directly from it.
Yes.
He's pulling large chunks of dialogue right from the comic. And
Which
that
is interesting, 'cause then
movie
you look
was
at
not as successful as
You look
300.
at a thing like Man of Steel, which you might consider the follow-up in terms of his comic book repertoire.
There's his comic book trilogy.
Yeah, but you don't necessarily have like pure panels being pulled from any specific Superman arcs.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, this is something to look at. We talked a little bit about this in our Stalwarts episode.
The stalwarts.
Yes. Still with us.
Hashtag
stalwarts.
Archie is our stalwart.
Yes, indeed. Continue to tweet that, please. No, but we talked about this sort of we can now apply this to film, which is the individual story, like something like Watchmen, and then the whole of the history of a character like Superman.
Like Superman, yeah.
And the challenges that come from adapting that. And I think there's more freedom in something like A Man of Steel, where you can pull a little bit here and a little bit there from a 75-year history. You can go over here and grab a little bit of the John Byrne run. You can go over here and grab a little bit of Superman Birthright. There's some secret origin in there.
But then that frustrates people who want the faithfulness to the material then. Because you're like, well, it's in there, but like we always say, it depends on who's writing.
Yeah.
And so then that's a more tricky question to answer, and then you get confused and you just get really angry that it wasn't like a true good story that we already knew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, but I think that's asking way too much of a Zack Snyder with Superman, because you do have to reconcile all those different versions. I mean, you look at also Chris Nolan with the Dark Knight movies. There's so many different places in them. I mean, you look at like Batman Begins. Primarily, that's year one.
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, I would say that's sort of the spine of the movie is based on year one.
Sure.
But he's pulling in little bits and pieces from different things. Each one of those movies is kind of primarily an arc, with the exception of Rises, which is kind of two.
What would you say Rises is?
I'd say it's Nightfall and No Man's Land.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, primarily.
Yeah.
And then he borrows bits and pieces from other things.
Sure.
But there's sort of a core story, because I think Dark Knight is primarily Long Halloween.
Really?
And once again, not entirely.
Okay.
Primarily, though.
But
it's
the
Long
essence
Halloween.
of those stories is brought into these films in such a way that it becomes apparent to people like us who have read the comic books.
Right, the aspect of the triumvirate of
Right.
Gordon, Dent, and Batman, the downfall of Dent being key to the climax of it and stuff.
No, I mean, I
you
agree with
two
that.
already know
But there's also a lot of
my opinion on that movie.
yeah, and that's
And we don't agree with you.
I know.
let's make that a teaser for the episode we do about the Dark Knight trilogy, rather than get into and devote the rest of this episode to that.
to us shouting at Donovan about his opinions about
Right.
Dark
It's
Knight.
brutal, folks.
What I was gonna
Please
say
send
is-
cookies.
What I was going to say is he also has a lot of Gotham Central in there, the Jokers and Mad Men storyline.
Yeah, a little bit.
Where I mean, that's some of this, particularly like the interrogation scene, is almost entirely from Brubaker's comic. So much so they paid Brubaker.
Well, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
He got. They used to have a
good for
policy at
Brubaker.
DC that if anyone directly lifted anything from your comic, you got some kind of royalty.
When
for
you
it.
say used to.
Well, yeah, they don't have that anymore because now they make a lot of comic book movies and they'd have to pay people all the
A
time.
lot of comic book movies?
I seem to remember two.
Yeah, recently too.
They will be making a lot more
For
so I
DC,
think.
So you
apparently
say.
that's a lot, yeah.
That's what they tell me.
That's what DC tells you?
That's what they tell me.
So yeah, I think when it comes down to it, making a good comic book movie is about finding not necessarily the specifics of any given comic book, but finding the. It sounds super douchey to say the essence of a comic book.
No, I don't think it
that's
sounds
right.
douchey. I think that's true. The spirit, the essence.
What makes
The
that
feeling of the
recognizable and the feeling of it? Yeah,
Right. Because I mean, there's stuff that drastically alters comic books. You look at something like Wanted,
yeah.
completely different than the comic.
Oh, yeah.
But a good movie on its own accord, and I think captures a lot of what Millar was going for in the vibe of it.
Yeah, I don't know. Those two things are so wildly different that it's tough to.
That it almost becomes just a good,
Its own
cool,
thing,
like a
yeah.
cool action movie on its own.
I look at Wanted especially as it's a comic book adaptation in the loosest sense. Like they took a vague concept of like this guy's dad used to be bad news and now he's getting drawn into that world, and that could be any action movie.
That's true. That's true.
As opposed to the comic book in which it literally involves supervillains.
Right.
Well, and another thing you look at is because comics are so visual already and people who are reading it not only get to see what the character looks like, but then feel what they look like, you have to take that into account too. Like you look at the Green Lantern movie,
Oy.
Ryan Reynolds looks like Green Lantern and all that world looks the same. However, he doesn't capture the essence of Hal Jordan
Right.
in the like, no, when I read him, that's
He was
what
actually
I
going
think.
for a Guy Gardner.
Was he? That explains a lot more, and it's still terrible. But you know, you look at things that take like a more visual shift, but you still get the essence of characters, and then you're like, okay, I'm still there, because I think that's the more important
Something
part.
like the X-Men movies.
Yeah, exactly. Where like visually, okay, their hair color is different, or this is that, or whatever. But
Black leather for everyone.
Black leather for everyone, but you're so for most of it, and then you're so with them because the tone of each of the character is so set.
Right.
Hugh Jackman as Wolverine.
I mean, I could get into my problems with how Cyclops was always portrayed, but
sure,
that is a conversation for another podcast.
And obviously X-Men is an interesting one to pick out because it's such an ensemble sort of cast. You have to nail it with.
It's Wolverine the movie is what all of those films are.
Yeah, but because all those other characters are such vivid characters from the comics, it's difficult to have. I mean, I wouldn't want to take all of those under my wing and figure that out.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is that movies, there aren't years of comic books. They can't be the ensemble piece.
No.
It has to be Wolverine the movie.
The exception, of course, being First Class.
Sure.
And the Avengers.
What now? Oh no! You're just talking about ensembles in general.
Oh, I'm
we
saying
were talking about the exception to the X-Men franchise.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
No.
Sorry.
No, but I think
Don't mean to give you a heart attack.
The other Marvel movies, like Avengers, did a really good job of portraying the ensemble. Like, you can go into that movie without having seen any of the other ones, and it's more fulfilling to have seen the other ones beforehand. And
it's not a Cap movie. It's not an Iron Man movie.
Right.
It's not.
No.
Which I was a little nervous about. Not that I wasn't going to go see that, of course, but just a little bit nervous about we saw Captain America, we saw Iron Man, we see all these people. I want to see them together.
Right.
And everybody gets pretty equal screen time.
Well, they cut out quite a bit of Captain America. That was in that early cut. If you look at the deleted scenes, that was very much a Captain America movie. That got turned into that. But
the other movie that did an amazing job of that is Guardians of the Galaxy.
Sure.
That's a through and through ensemble movie. We didn't get any backstory on those guys going in, and I feel like that is definitely Peter Quill, Star-Lord's movie.
Because you have to have a main character.
Right.
I mean,
but everyone else in that movie,
even in an ensemble piece,
all of the other Guardians in that movie get a great chunk of screen time.
Absolutely.
Even someone like Drax the Destroyer has some of the best lines in that film.
Absolutely.
It would not go over my head. I would catch it. My reflexes are too fast.
Exactly.
It was awesome. That was a great.
So we've talked a little bit about faithfulness. Something else. Do you think it's important for the filmmakers making these movies to be fans of the comics? I mean,
It shows when they are.
Yeah.
Well, does it though?
Yes, it does. Okay, you look at early Burton Batman stuff. Not bad movies, but stray pretty far from comic continuity, I feel. And then you got things like the Avengers with Joss Whedon, who is
but we could talk about somebody like Christopher Nolan, not a comic book fan, who made.
But who's writing those movies?
Well, okay.
Writing is a bigger part, I think. Than
we
directing.
need to. Well, now that's whoa.
In the comic book movies, because you're pulling from another source, John. Because you're pulling from another source. Those people need to do their homework.
You figure with the amount of people it takes to make a movie, somebody's a comic book fan. But we're attributing the visionary aspect of it to like a Christopher Nolan. I mean, that's
Are we
his,
though?
Says the
that's
director
his
of
vision.
this group.
No, but I'm
Yeah.
saying that's. I mean, he did write. He did at least co-write all of those movies.
Sure.
And what do
I'm
you mean by
saying, though-
not a comic book fan?
Well, no, he was not. I mean, obviously, you have to be someone. You have to at least be
Knowledgeable of
indoctrinated.
the-
Didn't Tim Burton
you-
say that he doesn't read comics and he doesn't like them?
I don't
feel
know.
like I've seen an
but I mean,
interview where that happens.
What I'm saying though is he did read some Batman comics. You know what I mean? Like I'm saying you have something has to pull you into the story even if you didn't come in. But I'm talking about should you already be a comic book? Because you like somebody like Raimi. Raimi was a big Spider-Man
Sure, and I
fan.
think that shows.
Right,
Like
but-
Donovan said, I think it really shows whenever a fan or someone who has a deep love for these characters and for these worlds comes in and wants to essentially write fan fiction or create like what they want their like ultimate story to be in their heads. Like that love translates onto the screen.
I think there's a kind of a danger in that though, isn't there? About becoming too. I mean, you turn into
I guess we'll
something
see
like,
with Age of Ultron, but
Well, no,
I don't think so.
no. Yeah, not on every level, but there can be. I mean, you look at something
Sure.
like Snyder directing Watchmen. I mean, there's no question that a big criticism of that movie was that it was too faithful to the comic, and he was a diehard fan of it.
Yeah.
But-
I'm
and
just saying.
I
I'm
think
not
the issue
saying
in
always. There's a balance there, but I would say is
But
there's
that doesn't
not,
make Watchmen a bad movie.
it's not a bad movie, but what I'm saying is I think there's a balance. You can go either way because you look at somebody like a Joe Johnston who directed Captain America: The First Avenger. I don't think he's like a huge comic book fan, but he really got that character.
Sure.
So that's what I'm saying. I think if you have a strong enough filmmaker, and they are able to come to understand the character.
I think what Donovan and I are saying, and Donovan, don't let me speak for you if I'm not interpreting this correctly, is yes, that can be good, but having someone who loves these characters is also really good.
It shows more. You can tell. You can walk out of there.
This is the thing. I don't think it shows more. Is where I would come down to. No, I mean, because you look at you can go back to something like Richard Donner directing Superman. That guy didn't. He wasn't like a huge comic fan when he directed Superman. He directed a perfect Superman movie.
I feel like Superman is a bit of a odd duck in this conversation simply because he's so
ubiquitous,
permeated into the cultural.
Same with Batman. I feel like
I don't even know if Batman reaches Superman levels of like everyone knows who and what Superman is.
I don't know. I feel like Batman.
And you can't imagine that anyone,
at least now,
writing or directing, that's like, all right, you're taking over Superman. Even if they're like, I don't really know who that is, would not read at least one comic.
Well, of course, there's no one. I don't think there's anyone making these movies who just is ignoring the comics.
The source material. We're talking about
maybe the guy who directed
love of these things going into it.
I mean, Bryan Singer, not a giant comic book fan, but really latched onto something in X-Men.
Sure.
That I think spoke to him, that made him the right guy to do that.
Yeah. I don't know his history with comic books. So.
I mean, I think
like some of these directors, I can't really speak to at all because I don't know their backgrounds.
I mean, what's interesting is there's a wide range of fans to casual fans to no knowledge of him. You talk about Burton came in without being a comic book guy. Yet I think even Burton captured something about that character at the very least. Well, I mean, you can get into what the changes he made or the world around him, but I think he did. I think he tapped into at least the psychology of Bruce Wayne and the Batman persona.
Maybe. I don't know. Did he have to make him sleep upside down?
That was the most important part of that film, I feel like.
Penguin, that weird freaky mutant thing, and Catwoman falling into a vat of cats.
That made sense.
She did not fall into a vat of cats. That's it was not a vat of cats.
Okay, it was a garbage bin. I apologize.
No, it wasn't even that. But
I think if you love comics, it shows. Just like if anything, like we were talking before the podcast about like Wes Anderson. Like he's obviously passionate about what he does. That brings in a whole nother sparkle. Even if you don't like the movie, you don't care for.
That's a filmmaker being passionate about his art form.
Sure, and so I think what you're seeing is that people who are good directors, they can pull it off. But the people who are already comic book aficionados and just like love
not even aficionados, but enthusiasts.
Enthusiasts, that's a better word. Thank you, Thesaurus.
Well, it's not necessarily about an encyclopedic knowledge of these characters. It's about a love of these characters.
Sure.
And knowing what drives these characters, even if it's only your interpretation of what drives them.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that is the most important thing. Whatever fandom you have coming in isn't as important as your ability to grasp at least what the core of a character is.
Right.
Yeah, I think we all agree on that. So we can also talk a little bit about some of the changes. Something I want to talk about, a thing that frequently changes. We touched a little bit on X-Men is things like costumes and the visuals of comic book characters. And where do you guys sort of fall on strict adherence to?
If the storyline and the tone of the movie is good, I can't ignore that.
Yeah,
as soon as one or both of those other things goes away, I can't do. I mean, that just sends me into more of a rage.
No, I think that's true.
You know, like Green Lantern, I said visually is pretty close, but because
that suit was not great. In that movie.
But I only say that because the rest of the movie wasn't great. If the rest of the movie was great, I would have been forgiving of that.
I don't know. The CGI suit, I think, was an odd choice, especially when we can very easily make superhero suits and had been doing so for many years prior to that.
I mean, we
were able to perfectly make the Superman suit back in '79.
They got a little excited.
The Batman suit. I mean, like we've been able to do comic book costumes for a while.
Spider-Man had been a thing before the Green Lantern movie,
and that's a way more complicated costume than the Green Lantern costume.
I get that, but what I'm saying is, I think that. I say things like that because the rest of the movie didn't hold up.
I think
had that held up, I would have been like, that was an interesting take. You can do that. And I feel like that's true with comics too. Like there's a lot of Batman stories that are written beautifully and I don't really care for the way they're drawn. And so that's okay though. That's not the most important thing. I think unfortunately it's the other way for a lot of people who don't read comics. The first thing they talk about is like, well, that's a really pretty that was really nice.
The art is the thing people gravitate to first.
Exactly.
Right.
Where if you read enough comics, you understand that that's a secondary, maybe even tertiary aspect of.
I
Let's not
really disagree.
Let's
with
not
that.
get crazy about
Oh,
that. I mean, you're downplaying the
medium
role of the
itself.
artist.
No, I'm saying that the story and the character development within that is more important than the art.
I think it's the marriage of the two that makes comic books like the amazing medium that it is.
Yeah.
You think so?
Well,
Or else you just be reading books.
yeah.
No, I get that there's a visual aspect that is important, obviously, or else they would be prose and not comics. I get that. But what I'm saying is I think that a lesser art form is more forgivable because the other part is more important. Like, I might take some flack for this, but
As the writer, I'm not necessarily disagreeing that story is one of the most important things when telling a story.
Sure. I mean, I think we can all agree on that.
But in the medium of comic books specifically, I feel like the great marriage between writing and art is what makes that medium special. Having a really cool panel layout that you've never seen before and how do you tell that story visually is part of what makes the medium really awesome.
And I get that, and I get that that's a great interpretation through the person illustrating whatever that comic is, because we've seen at least most of what I look at of background of comics is the writer kind of directing that, kind of showing what's
a lot of times it'll be a really good synergy though.
Sure, and you do feel those
that really
relationships.
depends because there's a wide variety of relationships.
Depends on who's
between-
writing.
I mean, no, but I mean, there's a huge. I mean, because there's Marvel method where you barely describe it all, and the artist takes the reins on it. Versus full script, which can be any.
I mean, have you
amount
read
of
some of Alan Moore's scripts for some
Oh
of his
yeah, I mean
comics? It reads like a book.
Right. I mean, so I'm saying there's to other stuff where it's just I don't know, they're on a roof and they fight. I mean, all of it's acceptable. That's the thing about. So there's no real one way to do that, and some artists and writers do different things. And
But
it's a synergy, like you're saying.
Bring it back to in film, because this is a whole nother conversation we can have. This is a whole nother podcast. Bringing it back to film in terms of nailing the visuals, I feel like Donovan said in the film especially, I think the story and the character comes first. The visual is a secondary thing.
Right.
But that being said,
Okay.
when you have a costume on the screen that just fucking nails it, something in my heart sings.
Sure.
And
I think
what they've been doing with Captain America, it's not quite the scale mail that we've seen in the comic books, but something about it is just oh, that is Cap.
Yeah. Same with Thor. I mean, the costume for Chris Hemsworth
Arms
is just
were a little plasticky, but meh.
but
Yeah,
it's
I mean-
awesome.
But
I
it
mean,
still looks awesome.
It looks so good. And
And man, those Hulk pants.
man, those Hulk pants, which is also our next hashtag.
Hashtag Hulk pants.
Man, those Hulk pants.
They are the single most durable piece of clothing
Yeah.
in all of comic books.
very true.
Yeah, we were also talking about
Very
this
true.
before, very briefly.
Versus things like we've seen some of these images of the Fantastic Four movie where their costumes are all black. They don't even have the number 4 on
I
them.
don't even.
But I mean, that's
John, that trailer told me absolutely nothing about
and
that
we
film,
can't
so
say
I
too much
don't-
because we
yeah.
haven't
but
seen the movie.
beyond the trailer. I mean, there have
Yeah.
been pictures released of the costumes. As well.
But the thing is because we've seen the character of Batman passed through so many different artists and Superman and everybody,
Right.
they're always going to change. So when you see a new visual interpretation on a movie, I'm not as perturbed again,
Right,
unless
right.
the story and the tone are terrible.
dare I say, it brings us to depends on who's drawing it.
Whoa.
Yes. But even then, there's a lot of forgivable, okay, this is a great story. It's not my favorite art style. You know? And I think, like I said, in movies, that's the same kind of thing. You get there and you're like, I liked the story, I liked the acting, I liked the tone, but visually, it was good. I liked it,
I think that's kind of the camp I'm in with a lot of the original X-Men movies. I really like 1 and 2. 3 has a whole mess of problems. But one thing that always struck me was, at least from the X-Men I'm used to reading, you've got distinct visuals for each character. And that was something that let them jump out at me as those individuals. When you throw them all in black leather, I just feel like it's a bit of a homogenization that I didn't necessarily want.
I mean, there's
You have
there's precedent
yes,
for that.
Yes, yes.
There's
You have
precedent for that.
the original X-Men costumes were all kind of like coordinated, and I can appreciate that. But like the Claremont stuff that like I started out with, we were already at a point where each person on the team had their own distinct dress style.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't know of any of the characters they fit having a uniform design.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
I mean,
never
it
got
makes
to
sense.
see Wolverine in yellow. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Does he not put? Oh, I guess because they only do that in First Class so briefly,
No.
right? They do that.
In First Class, they have like a little bit of the yellow costumes.
That- the blue and
original-
yellow.
Yeah, like the original one.
But
I was gonna say,
the
but
closest
it's
we've
not.
ever got is like that scene at the end that they cut out of the end of the Wolverine.
Yeah.
Where he like opens the thing on the plane and it's got the like costume in there, and everyone was just like, "Ooh, it's never gonna happen."
That was a great movie, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I know we're going through our lists, and we'll
Yeah,
see,
yeah. We'll
see
get,
what's
we'll
going
get
on there. But
but before we get to those, I want to talk about something which is becoming incredibly important now in modern comic films, which is the concept of the shared universe.
it's all connected, John. It's all connected.
Well, but to be
whether we
fair-
like it or not.
But to be fair, though, there's much precedent in comics. For the most part, comics are pretty connected. I mean, at least the major mainstream superhero ones
Sure.
from the big two.
No, I said that with an air of complaint about it. I fucking love the MCU. You know.
Oh,
that.
sure.
Like the fact that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all the Netflix shows are also tied into all
my
of this,
God.
Right.
and Agent Carter. It's like, how are they even doing this? This
Right.
is amazing.
Right.
Like
Jeff
the-
Loeb, that's how they're doing it.
Yeah.
See? Yeah, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's there to
But like,
make sure. everything
how
kinda
did
fits.
the Avengers happen? Like that is a movie by all accounts should not exist.
No.
So many moving parts having to go into that,
It's an incredible feat, really.
and yet we saw a film in which Captain America, Thor, Hulk, Iron Man, Black Widow, and Hawkeye all showed up and kicked alien ass.
And
Exactly.
It's amazing.
yes,
And,
it is.
and it was not a flop. I mean,
No,
that's
it's
the
good.
thing.
Yeah, it's good. Is what you're saying. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and on top of that, it's just a good movie.
How
as
many
well.
things can go wrong in a movie to make them like not function? There's
Right.
so many moving parts in just a movie. Any movie doesn't matter. From the most simple thing of like, what's that movie where it's just two guys sitting at dinner together talking?
My Dinner with Andre?
Sure. Like the most simple concept, it probably like not that big of a budget.
No.
But how many things could have gone wrong in just like the lighting, the set design,
Sure.
any of the actors? Like how many things can go wrong for a movie like that to fail?
Right.
And then you look at something like The Avengers,
Right.
where you have all of these different movies and all of these different creative directions coming together under the like auspices of Overlord Feige.
Right. No, so yeah,
But the fact that that actually worked and succeeded is a miracle.
and it started the trend of now. Well, everybody now we got to have one too.
And
Well-
now DC is years behind.
They were trying to do that before, though. Am I mistaken in that? I feel like before the Avengers came out, you always heard talk of like, we're making a Justice League movie.
We're making a Batman
We're gonna-
Superman movie. Yeah,
we're going to
yeah.
do this.
And how many times has DC said that? And
I know.
completely failed?
I'm still with them. I don't know. I'm like a golden retriever puppy, loyal forever.
Yeah, I mean, well,
You're gonna follow that train right off the bridge.
Yeah, I'll do it.
I hold out hope that those things are going to be good. Of course, I mean, because there's no
Once
there's
every character is Batman, John, it will be fine.
there's no reason
wanna
why
see
they
that
can't have
movie.
that.
I'm Wonder Woman.
There's no reason why
I
DC
wanna
can't
see that
have
movie.
that too. You know what I mean? I'm saying that really. I mean,
Yeah, they can try.
they have the source material to do it.
Sure.
I think the issue is right now the fans are on the side of Marvel because they've already done it and they're
Right.
continuing to do it.
But if anything, that to me should say, well, look, it can be done, so DC should be able to do it.
And they should have been able to do it years ago.
But think about the pressure that puts on them as well.
Right.
That if it's not good, everybody's going to be like, well, sorry, DC, I'm going to stick with Marvel, who knows what they're doing.
Right. Which also brings me to something else that I want to talk about, which is the idea of corporate issues becoming part of this, either eliminating movies or breaking shared universes, like with the Fox stuff. We've now, of course, have the Spider-Man back in
That's
the
gonna
Marvel
date this
universe.
episode, but yeah.
like he should. Well, no, because he's in. He's in.
yeah.
So that's kind of a danger that we don't see in comics so much.
No, it's true.
Because in comics, if you want to throw Wolverine in your comic,
and that's
you're at
actually,
Marvel, do it.
one of the series that just started was the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series that takes some of the characters that were invented for the television show and brings them into the comic book. And one of the slogans for the comic book was like, no budget.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing, too, is you have a limited, because we are making things that cost money.
And
You have a limited amount of freedom there.
in comics, you can just draw anybody.
Right.
It's
You're
like,
only
do we have to
limited
get
by
Hugh
what
Jackman? Nope.
Do we want Coulson teaming up with Valkyrie and Swordsman to fight some weird evil version of Heimdall? Go.
Here we go.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, first episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the comic book, check it out.
Yeah. No, so I think that's true. So that brings me to another point, which is animation. Is that perhaps a better way to adapt this?
That is one point I will cede to DC is that they have been
Animation's
doing
so good.
such a good job
Right.
with Batman.
Just Batman, you think?
Some of the Justice League stuff has been pretty good too.
Some
And
of the
like
Green
Super-
Lantern stuff is really good.
Yeah.
First Flight? Did you see
Yeah,
First
First Flight was
It
really good.
great.
Emerald Knights was really
Emerald
good.
Knights
I never
is
did see
great.
Emerald Knights.
Emerald Knights is I really enjoyed.
And like the Superman Doomsday one that came out a few years back was pretty good.
They've done several good Superman ones as well.
Yeah.
I mean, but you also, I know you made that
I saw
clip
the
about
Supergirl one. That one wasn't terrible.
Supergirl.
Yeah, that was the Batman Superman one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing
Yeah,
is,
that was
as you
pretty good.
said, you made that clip about Batman, but we also made a comment multiple times about how he is a brunt of the DC universe and the one that people are wanting to look into more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, no duh, they're going to do like 5 times the amount.
Well, I hear that.
So I
but-
said no
But then
duh.
we look at like what Marvel is doing on their animated movie front, and it's abysmal.
yeah, it is.
Like we'll have the occasional gems, such as the Doctor Strange movie, which I really
excellent,
enjoyed.
excellent.
If the actual movie can be like
Hulk versus
sort of like that.
Wolverine was
Hulk
really
versus
good.
Wolverine, good. Hulk versus Thor, which was part of the same movie,
Not bad.
it's
Not
okay.
bad. Not bad.
and they
Planet
used to
Hulk,
have
terrible.
great stuff.
Planet. Yeah, but I know your opinion on Planet Hulk, so
No, but I mean, even you would say
that movie wasn't great
No.
because it completely missed the pathos of that story.
Mm-hmm.
But then we look at like some of the CG ones that have been coming out recently, the Heroes United stuff.
Oh, that stuff feels very cheap, very rushed, not great.
But they used to have good stuff. They used to, the Spider-Man.
Yeah,
there's been a
But
couple
then we get
Spider-Man
into
series.
the
that's great.
shows. That's a different story.
well, but not
Up
so
until
much, not so
recently.
much anymore. Yeah.
We're talking about animation, though. I mean,
Yeah.
with
But what I'm
that.
saying is, animation a better way to adapt these things? I mean, you can just flat out
For
make
DC,
the comic
yes.
come to life. Well, then yeah.
For Marvel, I'm going to say not at this point.
Right, but I'm forget the companies, forget
Sure,
their
sure.
products. Like, do comics lend themselves more
from a
to
storytelling perspective, I would say yes.
because
Yeah.
you have the same kind of
You have the
more
same
of
kind of
freedom.
serialized freedom in terms of telling long, progressive stories.
Especially with-
or I'm saying, but also the
Creative freedom to
yeah.
put in whatever you want.
right,
yes.
right, yeah,
You can have Spider-Man fight like Morbius, the human vampire.
right, which would be tough.
Yeah,
And,
I think that's what the next movie's going to be, isn't it?
that's Morbius.
Spider-Man and Morbius.
why not, man?
Why not, Gorgoni?
Would we want to see a Blade reboot without?
Not really.
No.
No, I
Really?
mean,
You know what?
I don't have much attachment to the character of Blade.
You
like,
know
really,
how much I love Dracula.
You know what we need to
yeah,
see,
but
though?
you could make Dracula without Blade.
You know what we need to see? Wade. Right? So Blade was all the strengths of the vampire and all the weaknesses. Wade, his twin brother, the opposite. All the weaknesses. He's pale.
None of the
He can't go in the sun. None of the strengths. He drinks blood, but
doesn't
it's
he
not
just
sexy.
die?
Well, maybe. I'm just saying that would
Instantly?
be that
Like-
would be an interesting Wade.
Wade. All right.
Wade.
Well,
G-
we're
get on
gonna
that.
get a Wade movie here pretty soon when Deadpool comes out. and
Right
It's
then.
Wade Wilson.
But do you think
Yeah.
he's going to be related to Blade at all?
I
He's
would
going
be,
to have some blades that
Okay.
he's going to use.
I would be shocked
Is
if
he
that
going
was
to
connected to the Blade unit. Wesley
Snipe
Snipes shows
some
up at the end?
people?
He might snipe some people. So there's a lot of connections here.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, Wade would be pretty. that'd
Well,
be
go
pretty
ahead
great.
and write that movie.
I'm gonna write that script.
Yeah.
Like I said, he drinks blood. He's not sexy.
Yeah.
He's pretty pale.
Hates
doesn't like
Italian food.
Yeah, Italian food is a no.
Right out.
At Wade, he's like a white toast kind of person. You know,
Yeah.
little overweight.
Just a little. He's not fat, but he's a little chunky.
Got a couple of extra pounds.
Yeah.
Yep.
He
well,
could
and he
stand
can't see
Elizabeth.
himself in the mirror because.
That's
true.
true. He doesn't know how bad it's gotten.
Yep.
Beard is just super patchy.
Yep, that's right. So, and it's Transylvanian. He can't speak any of it, so he flunked out of that class.
He flunked out of Transylvania.
Yeah, which is weird because
So
he was
did
born
Bla-
in Transylvania.
Did Blade speak Transylvanian? I
Yeah,
don't remember.
That's the fourth one that they didn't make, unfortunately.
okay.
Hopefully, they bring that to the Deadpool movie.
The never made fourth Blade film.
It's made at my house.
So So overall, though, do you think comic book movies are better than they ever have been?
Yeah, undoubtedly,
Right,
John.
there you go. Anyway, to kind of get more into some specifics here, we've compiled some lists
Listy lists.
that we want to share with you, the listeners,
Yes.
and each other. Now, I don't want to say we think these are the best necessarily.
No, these are our personal favorites.
Well, I mean, but I didn't even necessarily take it to that extent for my personal
Because
favorites.
my list would be a much stranger list.
These are sort of 5 that I wanted to spotlight for kind of.
Well, then my
specific
list
reasons.
needs to change drastically.
Does it? No, but I think we all kind of talked
I'll
about
say
that.
that my list are my favorites.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Cool. Donovan, what would you say about your?
I mean, I enjoy all of these.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I mean, yeah. For me, it was sort of like 5.
But I mean, like, my favorite, the ones I've seen the most, the ones that, like, as a child I was watching,
Yeah.
the ones that I would still watch the most now are probably going to be slightly different than the ones I'm going to recommend. The other thing I was going to highlight is there's a few, as strange as it sounds, like comic books that have been made into movies that people maybe don't know were comic books.
Sure,
I
and I've
know,
got a couple of those as
and I
well.
think
Yeah.
that's good. I think that's a good thing.
So-
something I
I'm gonna say right now, American Splendor.
Oh, no, but I agree that needs to be talked about in the comic
It's
form.
not on my list, but I just
Men in
No,
Black
that's
was
great.
one of the ones I was going to talk
Oh,
about.
yeah,
Men in
yeah.
Black, people forget that was
Is that on
originally-
your list?
Well, yeah, not as my favorite. I was just going to bring that up.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
like
yeah.
Red, the Bruce Willis, Sean
Red,
Malkovich.
yeah,
People don't know. I told my dad that, and he's like,
Mask.
"I loved The Mask." It was also
The
I have that
Mask,
written down here.
technically all the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff.
All comics first, and then you get obviously the reverse of like He-Man stuff becoming.
Right.
I was actually I need to talk to you about this, John.
Transformers.
I want to do a whole episode on comic books that are based on other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
No, I
Let's
think
release
that's-
it before
Mostly
this.
because I want to really talk
and then
about
it will
Star
look
Wars
like
comic books.
then it will look like
I
Gorgoni
think
has
we'll definitely
short-term memory loss. If we release that next episode before
Don't
this
kid
one.
about this, Donovan. I don't want to start tattooing all over my body.
He
It's already
will
begun.
at the drop of a hat.
Haven't you seen your back lately?
No,
Uh-oh, he forgot about that.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
there are notes.
But yeah, no, that is something I want to talk about too, which is comic books that are a little bit more that aren't in the superhero genre and stuff, and don't seem, because there's also things like Road to Perdition or History of Violence.
Anyways, I was just going to bring
yeah.
that up. That those
Even
those
an
exist.
animated thing like Persepolis.
Anytime
Oh, yeah. Forgot
people
about
like
Persepolis.
movies, check to see if it's a comic first.
Because
And if it
there's a
was,
lot. I mean,
read
there's a
it.
wide variety of comics out there.
Oblivion, the Wall-E 2 with Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Wally.
Oh, we just had.
That was the same plot. You guys have to give me that. He's cleaning up a planet, just himself.
It's a. Well, it's not just. Well, okay, it's a little bit Wall-E. Yeah.
It's perfectly Wall-E.
I don't know about that, but it's definitely.
It's more Wall-E than
There's some
Wall-E
Wall-E
was.
aspects to it. Also, Snowpiercer we just had out recently, which is based on a comic
Yeah,
as well.
Whiteout. Hopefully, people know
Whiteout.
that was a comic.
Don't
Yeah.
see
And
the movie.
No.
And if you have, please read the comic and save some of that.
Yeah,
for you.
exactly. So no, there's a wide variety, and we're talking about specifically movies based on comics, not superhero movies
And we're
necessarily.
doing positive examples.
We're doing our
let's-
positive examples first.
Yeah,
We're going to end with the
'cause-
negative.
'cause
Yeah.
We're going to end on a downer.
Oh
Donovan.
yeah. This podcast.
There's going to be a stop listening moment. if
This
you-
podcast is going to get real sad really
It's
fast.
going to be a lot of me going,
So Donovan, why don't you kick us off with the first movie that's on your list?
Whoa. Okay. Well, we've already talked about it a bit, but the one that I keep coming back to is The Avengers.
Oh, yeah.
The Avengers. It did something.
I have that on my list as well because I think it encapsulates all the Marvel movies.
It encapsulates
like
all
my
the
list
Marvel
could
movies.
just be Marvel movies.
Yeah, I left it off of mine because I figured I sort of tried to pick stuff that I thought wouldn't get necessally mentioned. That's why.
Yeah.
I just
But
feel
yeah,
like
because I figured we'd talk about. the
they
Avengers.
did what everybody doubted they could do,
right.
and they did it perfectly. And that movie is enjoyable. My girlfriend Bridget, who I've referenced on this podcast a bit,
There's lots of bridge references in this podcast.
she and Uncle Paul. You're getting to know people
We
in my
know
life a
Donovan's
lot.
extended family.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll know everybody
she
by the end of this
saw
one.
that when it came out with her family, and up to this point was very on the fence about all comic-y sort of things. And she texts me and she's like, "I cried. I loved it. This was one of the greatest movies I have ever seen." And I think the Avengers, like even if you hadn't watched the Captain America and the Iron Man and stuff leading up to it, people saw the Avengers movie and were just like, "Oh my goodness! Like what just happened?"
There was an air of spectacle about it that I think really captures the tremendous excitement that you get when you read the Avengers.
Yeah. No, I think
Because it's about these huge events happening
Yeah.
and these people having to come together to fight it.
No, it was really the perfect way to bring them together with the right filmmaker. at the right time. And
Also, always more Tom Hiddleston as Loki.
that's
Oh
true.
my
That's true.
gosh.
100% of the time.
Yeah, I mean,
Tom Hiddleston is anything. He was F. Scott Fitzgerald. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah, Midnight in
Perfect.
Paris. He was great.
Perfect.
But no, I think that movie. I mean, that's sort of the be all end all comic book movie to me, and like that kind of encapsulates just superheroes to me in a big way, and what they're about, and how why they're so great, and yeah, exactly, and brought it to the masses.
And being redundant, it wasn't an individual movie. It was a team up movie in its like perfect form. Where there wasn't a leader. I mean, Joss Whedon was the leader of that movie.
I'm pretty sure Captain America formed the head there at the end.
Sure.
I think he's the leader. He's not the lead character,
Exactly.
but
And-
I would say he's the leader of that team.
And you feel him as like, okay, he's the guy in charge, but at the same time, it wasn't like, oh, this is a Captain America movie, which I think was great.
Yeah.
Mewling Quim is a great line also.
yeah, that I now throw around all the time.
Do you use that, John?
No,
You
I
probably
don't.
shouldn't. If you look at those root words, it's
What
not,
now?
It's not very polite. And,
Thought it just
and the
meant
other
mean
thing-
person, right?
The other thing that the other thing that was brought up the other day when I was talking to somebody is on the not a spoiler. If people haven't seen this and they're listening to this podcast, you need to stop
This
right
whole
now.
podcast is a joke.
I know.
We could
I'm
call
just-
this podcast spoilers.
I just want people to
We've
know.
made a terrible mistake with panel on panels, John.
But the guy on the bridge of the helicarrier,
Yeah.
what's he playing?
Galaga.
Yeah.
Galaga, right? What's the plot of Galaga?
Oh, yeah, you told me about this. Yeah.
Is blowing up aliens in space, and what does Tony Stark at the end of the movie do? It's it's so like every detail of I'm gonna geek out, but every detail of that movie is just perfect.
Gonna geek out on comic book podcast.
I know, surprise! It's just it's so good. And the other thing we get from that is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because Coulson becomes like a pinnacle character in that.
Coulson lives.
Coulson, and then Coulson lives.
Yeah.
And all the events of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. happen because of the Avengers movie.
Yeah, I mean that movie is obviously going to just be felt. I mean,
The
that's
ripple
gonna be felt
effect.
through that. I mean, because you look at Iron Man 3, it deals with the after effects of that.
Cap 2.
Cap 2, yes, that's.
But
the one I was
even
going
though
for. I mean,
Coulson
even
is
Dark
in-
World, even though the Dark World to a certain extent touches on it.
And
It's the least connected to those events, but yeah.
and you've got Coulson in the previous Marvel
Actually,
movies.
that's not even 100% true because then you got Eric Selvig who's like,
Yeah.
I had a god in my brain. I don't
Yeah,
recommend it.
yeah.
Which I love. Stellan Skarsgård, thank you.
I don't know why you said that like Robin Williams, but I've got a god in my brain.
But you've got Coulson in those existing Marvel movies, Iron Man and Thor, and everything leading up to it. But he's a cool extra character until he dies, and now he's the star of his own TV show, and you care about him because of the events of the Avengers.
For
That's
sure.
what I was trying to say. Which I love, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Everybody should be watching that all the time, especially if you've got one of those. What are those boxes called where you get all the ratings? What are those?
Nielsen boxes.
Nielsen
Yeah,
box.
yeah,
If
yeah.
you get a Nielsen box,
I
listen to
hate
this.
those things so much.
Please watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. if you have a
Yes.
Nielsen box.
No, we've obviously been continually endorsing that show on this podcast. Gorgani, what's the? You said Avengers was on your list.
Avengers was on my list. I can follow that up with something though.
All right, okay. Let's go.
It's a movie I actually just rewatched today because I love it so much. And that's Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
That's on my list as well.
Excellent. Based on the Brian Lee O'Malley comic book, Scott Pilgrim. It is such a great movie. From the opening scene where it's not even the opening scene. Before we get to the opening scene, that bit where it has the Universal logo in pixelated.
Yeah.
And it's playing the Universal music like chiptune style.
Yes.
That movie fucking had me.
Is perfect.
Like, I can speak at length about how Scott Pilgrim affected me in terms of how it was such a vital interpretation of what it means to be like I really dislike the term millennial, but
No, I think
our
it's,
generation
yeah.
of young people in terms of how video games and pop culture have infected our way of thought.
It's the way we communicate. It's the way we
Right.
Sort of process everything through
Yeah.
that lens.
And I feel like the movie did such a good job of translating that.
Yeah.
The fact that they had to translate, like, how many volumes is that? 6?
6.
Into a
2-hour movie.
2-hour movie.
Roughly, and maybe
And
a little
it's
under.
Beautiful.
And it's beautiful and it's great and it's
they did it
frenetic and
perfectly.
amazing.
Yeah.
Edgar Wright did an amazing job of directing that movie. Did he also write it?
Yeah.
With Brian Lee O'Malley's help, I want to say.
No, with a guy
No?
named Michael Bacall.
He had never even heard of
who also wrote
the comic
the
before.
Jump Street movies.
So I guess this is a perfect example to John's point about how like a really good director who just has a lot of passion for what they do can make a really good comic book movie even if they don't necessarily love the source material. Though, to be frank, Scott Pilgrim is a bit more of a contained experience. That,
Edgar's also like the biggest comic book fan in the
yeah,
world. So.
exactly.
Yeah, he's
But yeah,
very
just like
much
down to
a
the
huge
visuals
comic
and the
fan.
sound effects of that movie
Yeah.
and like everyone they cast
It's,
for it.
it's such an assured vision of a movie, and so without being beholden to it completely, so captures that comic.
Yeah.
No, exactly. I think it's a perfect kind of example. So the first movie on my list is sort of the we mentioned it before, but it's Superman the movie from 1979. It's the start of the superhero movie as we know it. Like the structure of that movie, it gave us the structure for what an origin film looks like.
Yeah.
Basically, you start here, you go here, you do this, you have this kind of villain, you have this sort of thing. I mean,
Lex Luthor in all the movies.
yeah, but I'm saying like, Spider-Man continues that, Iron Man continues that. I mean, it's I think it's a movie everyone's familiar with. I think
It's created such a legacy of archetypes, I want to say, and that's like a lot of really fancy words in that sentence. But it has, in terms of creating a visual representation of how we interpret these characters.
Yeah.
And just the beats in which we do it.
right. Well, and also the whole thing was how sincere it was.
Yeah.
That's
an important part of the Superman
Richard,
character, though, is
but
the sincerity.
But I mean, the Richard Donner really took it seriously. He
Yeah.
made that was his whole point. Was we don't play this for laughs. We're not being campy. This is not the '66 Batman show.
Right.
It's Superman, and it's going to be as serious and cool. And I mean, you can listen to him talk about that on numerous documentaries and things about how that was the only way to do it, was to do it like that. I mean, the tagline of "You'll believe a man can fly." I mean, it was capturing the magic of comic books and their sincerity. And yeah, I mean, I think it obviously kicked off everything. It all goes back to that movie, just like that character kicked off superheroes.
Sure.
It's very fitting.
Yeah, I think so.
It's like they knew what they were doing. Or they picked a surefire, a stalwart.
Yeah,
to-
indeed.
To be a
stalwart.
ringer.
Donovan, what is your next movie?
Yeah. Batman Begins.
Mm.
So this was... I mean, we had the Spider-Man movies, we had the X-Men movies, we had stuff in between.
Spider-Mans and X-Men.
The Spider-Mans and
Spider-Man,
X-Men.
the X-Men.
But I remember, obviously I'm a huge Batman fan. We've talked about this. Everybody in the world should be a huge Batman fan. And seeing...
Except for the Joker. But though maybe he's the
He's the biggest Batman fan, I think.
According to Snyder's run.
Yeah.
Got to mention it on this one.
Wow, yeah.
I think we missed it on the last one.
We'll edit that back in. We'll find some context.
Scott Snyder's Batman. Just in the radio edit.
Put that. Or subliminally under the entire episode. I like that.
But yeah, specifically Batman Begins.
Batman Begins. We've talked about you called it the Dark Knight trilogy earlier, which is only mentioned in 2 of the movies.
Yeah, but it's enough that's what
I would
everyone
say
calls
the,
it.
the Nolan trilogy.
The
maybe.
Nolan trilogy, the Dark Knight trilogy.
I'm not the semantics now. I understand that, but what
Can we just call them Batman movies?
them Batman movies. So what I like about the first of them Batman movies is one, the main villain, Ra's al Ghul, Ra's al Ghul, depending on how you want to say it.
He says Raz, the animated series says Raish.
It's all
I
over the
have no
place.
idea.
And that's fine. I think
I've heard it pronounced both ways on Arrow.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. What I've researched this. I believe it's Raish because it's Egyptian, and that would be the Egyptian.
What I always feel like
pronunciation,
is
Raish.
the people who
that was Sanskrit.
like
Isn't it Sanskrit?
come from that culture pronounce it Raish.
Yeah.
People from outside the culture pronounce it Raz.
That's exactly right.
Which is it's fine by me. Anyways,
I've always said Raish because I heard that on the animated series, and that stuck with me.
see, I always say Ross because it
Yeah,
sounds
same here.
it reminds me of Frasier. But with
Less with the Frasier, but yeah.
yeah, so Ra's al Ghul in that is amazing. It's this like arch villain who in that movie he's trying to not like rule for himself. He's trying to take over Gotham for the betterment of
He's
mankind.
not trying to take over Gotham. He's trying to burn Gotham down.
Well, and then
Yeah.
rebuild it, right? He's like
Yes.
he is okay. He
Once you
is
burn
the
a city down,
here
kinda
is
hard
the,
to just
he
start
is the
again.
true Batman and what Batman needs to do eventually, which he'll never do, obviously. But instead of like weeding out these things, he's going to scorch the earth and let it rebuild again. So you've got this dichotomy. You've got him being trained by him, which is awesome. It's the most streamlined. I think
No, I agree.
the story in that one is
Of the three movies, it's the quickest, most efficient, and like structurally sound.
and
film.
it's an origin story without us being like, ugh, the whole time.
Because
feel like.
he does so well with with the use of the flashbacks and the non-linear aspect of it, and you also see that in Man of Steel as well. Sort of instead of doing
Even more so, I think, in
instead
Man
of
of
doing
Steel.
it chronologically, it's almost thematically.
Yeah.
What we pull what we need of the backstory when we need it in the story.
I'm hoping that's what Marvel. I'm hoping that's not what Marvel means in terms of we're abandoning the origin story.
Yeah, I don't think they do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But Batman Begins is my favorite of those trilogies, of that trilogy of them Batman movies.
Thank
Right.
you.
And I just think, I mean,
It's a great movie. It's a great movie. I mean, that movie redefined Batman, and I think,
and that's what I was gonna say. Is when I saw that, I was like, yes,
Yeah.
we're figuring it out again. The tone here is perfect. Like I
Right.
agree with you completely. It's not hokey. It's Batman.
right. No, I had the
So
similar reaction.
that's what I have to say about that.
Gorgoni, the next movie on your list.
Next movie on my list is I had real trouble nailing this down. The Hellboy movies. I don't want to.
Okay, yeah.
I don't
No.
want to disclude one of them.
No.
For sake of just listing one movie.
I
But
think
both
I expected those to be
Guillermo
there.
del Toro's Hellboy 1 and 2.
Yes. Both great
Hellboy
movies.
1 did an amazing job of capturing what Mike Mignola had done in terms of creating the Hellboy universe. Hellboy 2 did a great job of furthering that character in its own cinematic universe. Really differentiating the two characters in a unique and really fun way.
Yeah.
Hellboy 2 was a crazy movie with a ton going on.
The German Seth MacFarlane.
Seth MacFarlane,
Great.
The Tooth Fairies, the whole fairy culture thing, declaring war on humanity. And there are bits and pieces of that movie that were taken from the comic books, but it definitely went in a wildly different direction.
Definitely.
In terms of the whole romance with Liz thing, but it felt like a great continuation of what was established in that first movie.
Right.
And I think the Hellboy movies specifically are a great example of capturing the essence of a character without necessarily being beholden to specifics of the comic
Right.
book. Because while a lot of the story elements in the first movie are directly pulled from the comic books,
Right.
very few of them in the second movie are.
Right.
But you've already established that character, and you've established
Yeah,
that the director
just like
and
that
the
And
team
that world, and that the visual style
that
of
they
it,
care about it.
and that was such a perfect pairing of filmmaker
Oh my
and source
God, right?
material. Yeah.
Will we ever see a Hellboy 3?
Yes.
Doubt it. We're going to see that before we ever see At the Mountains of Madness.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
tell you
true.
that much.
That's true.
I'm holding out.
But yeah, so the Hellboy movies, I love them so much.
Great choice. So the next movie on my list is we talked a little bit about being true to the visuals of and I don't know if there's anything. Possibly,
I've got one on my list that's definitely exactly just for that.
Yeah, and that would be why this is on it. And that's Dick Tracy.
Oh,
Great movie.
Warren Beatty's Dick Tracy.
I never actually saw it.
Oh, really? I mean,
Have you read any of the comics? The
No.
Dick Tracy stuff?
It is.
Okay.
It is the
Well,
Dick Tracy comic strip
homework.
come to life. I mean, so much so that he's using prosthetic makeup to physically make
I mean,
actors look
I've
like.
seen
Yeah.
images from this movie to make them the exaggerated
drawing, yeah.
What is it?
Pacino.
Pacino's bad guy in that movie.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
just so weird and deformed, but they did it on purpose.
Yeah, and you've got Dustin Hoffman as Mumbles, and I mean, yeah, it is, and the colors, the vivid yellow coat. There's a scene where Dick Tracy fights a guy in a little shack, and you're outside of it, and you see the shack swaying back and forth as he's punching the guy against each wall and stuff. I mean, yeah, it captured the comic strip aspect of this very crazy world, the vibrant colors, but serious, not being campy, not doing the '66 Batman thing. It's completely serious in its own world. And
What was that movie that just came out a few years ago? The Spirit?
Yeah,
Oh, that's
Frank Miller.
Kind of did something similar.
Yeah, a bit. I mean, he kind of took a Will Eisner comic and made it a Frank Miller comic.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Just turn it into Sin City.
yeah, it's very very Sin City-esque. But yeah, so Dick Tracy specifically for its visuals and it was kind of I mean, that came out right on the heels of Batman.
Yeah.
A totally unique film at the time that it came out. Nobody else was doing anything like that. So yeah,
Yeah, because it would be years until we saw something like 300 come back up.
right, where somebody is really actually trying to mimic comics in their visuals. So, Donovan,
I've got V for Vendetta.
Nice.
a perfect example of something.
I'm actually now kicking myself that I didn't include that in my list.
That movie I love that movie
That's a
so
great
much.
movie.
And, it's actually one that this is probably the only time I do this. I recommend people see the movie before they read the comic because I feel like
For V for Vendetta specifically, yeah.
for that one and that one only, because
I don't know about that one only, but
that's the only
I
example
was actually
can
having
think of.
this discussion earlier about Scott Pilgrim, actually. Whether or not if you're going to try to introduce someone to that, do you make them see the movie first? Oh, make them, but do you show them the movie first or let them read the comic book first? And a very strong argument was made to me that you should let them see the movie first, and if that draws them in terms of like how the references and stuff are presented.
I think that's right.
And Scott
But V
Pilgrim,
for Vendetta is very similar in that respect.
and the thing about V for Vendetta, the movie, is it feels a lot more relatable in this time.
Yeah.
And in future times.
It's a much more contemporary story.
Exactly, where the graphic novel is great,
more dated.
however, it's dated quite a bit.
I mean, it's a commentary on Thatcher era London, which we do not live in anymore.
Well, some of us don't live in it anymore, apparently. But I think, I feel like the visuals on there, the Wachowski brothers, that's right? No,
The Wachowskis, yeah.
Yeah. They...
No longer brothers, but yes.
Really?
They're siblings.
What? All right,
Because
great.
one of them is now Lana Wachowski.
All right, fair enough.
But the Wachowskis wrote that movie. They did not direct that movie.
Yeah, but just the adaptation there, where again the tone is perfect, but they modernize it in a way that you're not feeling like, okay, this is a timepiece, And it's this kind of, I'm so tired of this whole like postmodern idea of like in somewhere in the near future, and we don't know exactly, but they do it perfectly. I just get tired of that because I feel like everybody is doing that. But V for Vendetta is great. Hugo Weaving, killer. Natalie Portman,
Which he actually
stellar.
didn't do any of the physicality in that movie, I found out.
But
recently.
Just his voice.
But his voice, like Darth Vader, and like enlivens that so much.
Yeah.
And John Hurt is great in that movie. I mean, everybody.
Fantastic.
That is,
That's a great cast of it. Stephen Fry is great in that movie.
yeah.
There's a lot of great actors.
So
in that.
I highly.
Are we just not going to mention Natalie Portman?
No, I did. I did.
Okay.
I said Hugo Weaving, then Natalie Portman.
Okay.
Hey,
John
those
Hurt.
two first, and then John.
No, she was terrible.
What?
The rest of the movie was
she
great.
even in that movie? That was Keira Knightley's. They. Anyways,
No,
so
it's a great movie, and it's a great example of what we were talking about, which is not directly adapting the comic specifically, but capturing the essence and in that case updating it and making it a film and the tools of that medium.
And visually, again, it's
Oh,
just
fantastic!
like-
James McTeague is the director of that.
Oh, thank you. I was
He
trying to-
did a great job.
I guess we're over to me again.
Yes, we are.
I had mentioned earlier that I had one on my list that was just purely for visuals, and I also mentioned this movie a little bit earlier, which was Sin City.
Yes.
That movie does such a tremendous job of just, wow, those are the panels I read on the comic book on the screen in front of me.
And it totally works.
Oh, and it totally works. I still haven't seen A Dame to Kill For.
Me neither.
So I cannot speak to that film, but the original Sin City, Robert Rodriguez, Frank Miller,
Special guest director Quentin Tarantino.
Special guest director Quentin Tarantino. Such a good movie. Such at a time when the comic book movies, I feel like we were kind of in like a little bit of a lull with the comic book movies.
They were just about. It was like maybe a couple of years before Iron Man.
Yeah.
So, they were starting to get good. I think Batman Begins had come out, maybe.
I'm saying a lot because I'm collecting my thoughts.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But Sin City represented such a clear, concise vision of just like, boom, there's the comic book. And the cast in that movie, Bruce Willis and, oh my God, who played
Mickey Rourke.
Mickey Rourke? The
Clive
prosthesis on that, Clive Owen. Oh my God.
Yeah. Those are your essential three characters.
Yeah. And that movie came together in such a cool way. Also, seeing Elijah Wood as that creepy fucker was pretty sweet.
Yeah, no, it's a great and once again in that visionary kind of category of like I didn't know that was possible.
Right.
Well-
in that same way that I felt like with Dick Tracy, and but to that now,
Right.
it was just like wow, I can't believe the stuff he did with the black and white, with the
Splashes of color in
splashes
there.
of color, the just that Frank Miller
It
art
felt
style.
like the comic book had come to life.
Yeah.
Well, and that was something I
The
didn't.
hard lines around people. And
I didn't speak up about this a moment ago, but the Spirit made it onto my not so great list because it took the
I never actually saw that movie. I just brought it up.
Oh,
because
I
knew
saw
its
it.
Visuals were
Because-
that's one of your worst movies.
I mean, it didn't make the complete list, but
Okay.
because we only picked two. But
Right.
and there's a few, unfortunately. that
I
have
do
been there.
have like my stinker honorable mentions as well.
Yeah,
we'll get
and
into-
this was
we'll get
definitely
into
there,
those.
and it was
You weren't a fan of
specifically.
Spirit. I thought I enjoyed it.
It wasn't a bad movie.
No.
It was the fact that I've read Will Eisner things,
Yeah.
and that was not what it was. It was an extension of Sin City is what it felt like.
Definitely.
Visually, tone,
Definitely.
and everything. And I thought, if Frank Miller and Will Eisner were pals, which we know they were, and
Yeah.
why would you take somebody else's work and then be like, well, my version would be better?
Because you're Frank Miller.
And that's the only explanation, and that just peeves me.
I don't know if his attitude was mine's better
Sure,
so
yeah.
much.
Well,
as
then
this
why
is
wouldn't
just-
he have done the other?
I
It's,
don't- I mean,
it's
'cause I
like,
think
well,
that
this is
was-
what I've done before, so I'll do it again, which is also.
I mean,
not
I
a
think
great
that's just
excuse.
his style.
And I'm saying that it was like way more gritty than the original Spirit. He strays a little bit, not a whole bunch from the storyline, but a little bit. And again, visually beautiful, not a bad movie. But when you know the original source material, it kind of makes you go, "Oh, come on!" Like it could have been what I'm familiar with. So that's why I made that kind of honorable no list,
Honorable stinker.
honorable stinker.
John, I think we're over to you.
Yeah, the next movie on my list is on here because it was a complete surprise to me how much it worked, and that's Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, yeah.
Characters that I had no particular love for necessarily, didn't dislike,
Sure.
but who would have thought one of the best comic book movies ever, I think, based on pretty obscure material.
We are Groot.
We are Groot, exactly. I mean,
We are.
that movie, like we talked about, that when we were talking about ensembles and stuff, you care so much about all of those characters.
Oh, yeah.
and in that,
such a
in that
brief amount of
2-hour
time.
runtime, James Gunn makes you care about all those characters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just think
Hell, I even cared about Cyborg Karen Gillan a little bit.
yeah, Nebula was a great character.
I still do more.
She survived.
I know. I
She'll
want
be
to see
back.
more
She'll
of
be
that.
back in the next movie. But yeah, I just think what a great space opera in a classic sense that we don't really make anymore of those
And
kind of movies.
A great, unique view of like what's out there that we don't really see all that often.
Right, and within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but
Yeah.
not as overtly tied to it as
Well,
other
that's
things.
always been what's cool about the cosmic stuff is that it can be more out there and weird because it's not on Earth.
right
Because it's out there.
It's
Right.
out there.
It's
It's,
in-
cosmic.
yeah, it's very
It
much
is
in its own place.
space.
Like the Muppets.
Just like pigs.
Now you've seen it. Now you can't unsee it. Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, but so I mean,
That'd be a great
it's a huge
crossover.
hit. I don't think I need to talk too much about it. I'm sure everyone's seen it, and it's a great,
And it's-
great movie.
John, you said a couple weeks ago that it was Han Solo, that Chris Pratt was kind of a Han Solo-y
Yeah.
character, which we haven't seen for a long time. Like,
And that's since maybe Mal Reynolds.
yeah,
Or as
which feels like a long time.
one of our friends always says that every character on that show was Han Solo.
Yeah, that makes no.
Yeah. Anyways, I just enjoyed Guardians a lot.
Yeah, me
Bridget,
too.
Bridget did not give her that.
She is incorrect.
Well,
Yeah, she's.
we had that discussion.
you
Don't
know,
worry,
people
she
can have their
knows.
opinions, but she's wrong.
Yeah. No, don't worry. We definitely had a discussion about that and how I won't get into it. It will upset people. But it resolved with, I like that movie very much. And that's how that ended.
All right, Donovan, your next movie.
So, surprise, another Batman movie. And I'm going with the Batman movie. And I know we've made a
my
little
God. Oh my god,
jokes.
I
What?
really hope this is the movie I think it is. Keep going.
The Adam West.
Oh my
Batman
god! Oh my god!
Batman the movie.
The movie.
Where he's carrying the bomb over his head.
yeah.
No,
Oh
I
my
love this movie.
God.
Yes. So, again, I said that these are movies that I enjoy.
Yeah, yeah,
I will
or-
gleefully watch that movie until I'm
Me too.
90 years
Me too.
old and show
I
my
love
children.
Adam West Batman.
It is the thing is it's that time of Batman comics was kind of goofy and kind of fun.
Right.
They captured it on the show beautifully, which if you haven't seen every episode of that show, you should watch every episode of that show.
And it's now available in an awesome box set. You can buy every episode of that show.
Yes, it is. You can borrow
John,
from John Campbell.
do
Just
you
write.
already own that?
Oh, yeah.
Just write in and we'll loan it to you.
Having only
day it came
seen
out.
maybe 2-3 episodes of that show tops, I never want to borrow it.
The thing is they know
It was the best.
they know the voice.
You have a very different opinion on what the word "best" means than I
That
do.
show was amazing.
They know the voice of what they're doing. They know exactly what
Some
they're
days
doing.
you just can't get rid of a bomb.
That's the best line. That's one of my all-time favorite movie quotes ever.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, Wallace and
goes-
Gromit parodied
He goes
that,
to throw
which
it
is
over,
great.
and there are the ducks, and then he goes, and there's the couple kissing in the boat, and he's
Just like everything.
and then he's running, and the parade goes by him and stuff. It's amazing.
I mean, you've got all these great
bat shark repellent is in
Bat
that.
shark
Bat
repellent.
Shark repellent
There's
is in
all-
that movie.
There's all the riddles written in the
Yes.
sky, which are great, and the penguins
And you have-
submarine that looks like a penguin.
This movie's amazing because you have all the villains and all the
Yes,
great villains from the
exactly.
show.
Yes, it is like it's basically that's where the Avengers got their idea. Was the team up kind of thing was from this original because you've got Cesar Romero, Frank Gorshin.
Frank Gorshin's still my favorite Riddler. By the
He
way.
is my favorite Riddler. You've got Burgess Meredith as the Penguin.
You have Lee Merriweather as Catwoman, who's not as good as Julie Newmar, but she's pretty good.
We'll have this discussion
But
on another
most
podcast.
importantly,
Uh-huh.
is Vincent Price
No,
there?
Egghead's not in it. No, it's like
well,
the
I'm
iconic,
out.
the iconic ones for the comics. None of the made up ones for the show.
I'm-
Actually, it was made between season 1 and 2, and
And-
Egghead doesn't get introduced
And do you
until
remember
season
what
2
the?
anyway.
Do
so.
you remember what the big villain weapon in that movie was, John?
It's the weapon that turns the
People into powder.
Yeah, they just
it
turn
like
into
dehydrates people.
Yeah, that's it. It dehydrates people.
and
That's
it's
what I was looking for.
terrifying and awesome, and it's great.
They
I
dehydrate the UN at the end of that
love-
movie.
Yes, they do. Well,
Yeah.
not at the very end of that movie.
Can they
No,
be
no.
rehydrated?
Yeah, of course.
Sure,
Batman finds a way-
figures that out.
Batman finds a way to rehydrate the UN.
No, I just that whole movie,
God.
and you've got the zap and pow and bam fight scenes like you
There's
want.
some really good Batman Catwoman stuff in
It's-
that movie too, where she's trying to seduce
She
him.
does.
Yeah,
She does seduce him because
Yeah.
she's Selena Kyle.
yeah. But is that where she goes by the name Miss Kitka?
I believe that's correct.
Yeah.
Yes, it's been a couple weeks since I've seen that movie, so I need to watch it again.
I believe that's the fake name she used.
a couple weeks.
But as far as movies go,
And man, the color palette of that
the
show
color
in
palette of that movie is as bright as the
Let's
original
just
Star Trek
force
series.
Feed
Yes.
Skittles to a clown.
Well, they
and let
came
him
on the same
vomit
year.
over
I know they
everything.
did.
Yeah.
66 is great, and also I think I've referenced this on the show, but there is now a graphic novel version called Batman 66.
It's amazing.
and it's just like the show, and it's beautifully drawn, and it's hokey and cheesy,
yeah, Jeff Parker does
and
it.
I love it.
And
so,
actually, Kevin Smith just wrote Batman 66 meets the Green Hornet.
what?
Yeah.
That's I didn't even hear that. Anyways, so I don't have to rant more on that. If you, I have a deep love for that movie and always will. And I think also,
Me
I mean,
too.
as a kid, you can give that it plays to all ages. I remember as a kid, like seeing that and being like, this is so much fun.
Yeah.
And even then, I knew it was cheesy. I knew it was like,
Yeah, but it was
not a
great.
good movie. But it was wonderful. So Gorgoni, top that one.
I mean, I have on
I've
on a
got
shelf in my
nothing.
house. I
I'm
have.
sorry.
I have the figure set of Batman and Robin going up the side of the building. So
Do you really?
I do,
I
yeah.
saw one the other day in a local comic shop, and it's him with the bomb over his head.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I want to get that so
that's,
bad.
That's so awesome.
That would be like one of my only figurines I
I
would
realize
have.
you guys can't see this, but inside my head, there's a tiny man turning a crank on my brain, trying desperately to restart it, but failing.
Yes, but does Penguin in your brain quack? Because he kind of quacks in the movie.
Yeah.
I'm Penguin.
The movie I would like to talk about next.
Let's try and top the 66 Batman movie
I
because it's
can't.
not going to
Challenge
happen.
I
accepted.
can't. I'm sorry.
All right, what is the next movie?
This is actually the last movie on my list of goodies,
Okay.
and that is Ghost in the Shell. I realize
Well, a
I am-
hard turn in a new direction
yeah,
from the 66
I am
Batman.
solely responsible for bringing up anything that has to do with manga or webcomics.
Yes, that's true.
And since there are no real movies based on webcomics yet,
You are our Japanese ambassador, I feel like.
that's not great.
That's not going to be good for anybody.
But yeah, my two imports are Godzilla and Cyberpunk.
Perfect.
Ooh, Cyberpunk Godzilla. It already happened. It's called Mechagodzilla.
That was the last on your. How many do you have on your list, Donovan?
I technically had one more, but we
You have one.
we
No,
can
no,
do
no,
it.
no. We'll do it. We'll do it.
But it's because we've had some overlap.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ghost in the Shell, based on the comic book by Shiro Masamune. I've brought the comic book up before as a recommendation. The original movie that was released is solidly based on that first manga.
Well, that's what we were talking about before with animation,
Right.
too, also.
But the difference is like a lot of it's actually becoming more of a thing now that manga is being translated into live action stuff. That could be very bizarre though.
Scarlett Johansson
Is going to be playing in the American reboot or remake or whatever you want to call it.
Adaptation?
Adaptation. Of Ghost in the Shell. Yes, that is happening. But the original movie, it's called an OVA. What does that stand for? It's an acronym for something. I don't remember.
I just shrugged my shoulders on the audio.
Sure,
podcast.
sure. But these movies based on adaptations of manga, they as opposed to the like long running anime series that you're more accustomed to seeing on television and stuff. So Ghost in the Shell is one of the best interpretations I feel like of manga being translated into these movies. Other examples are like Akira and have you ever seen Akira, John?
I've not seen Akira. I know
Holy
of it.
Crap, you need to see that movie.
Would you see the movie first or read them?
Definitely see the movie first. The manga is a little insane. Not that the movie's not insane, because it definitely is insane. But what's interesting about Ghost in the Shell specifically is that I didn't actually come to that comic book from the comic book or the movie that I'm talking about now.
Whoa.
Because
Then what?
there is also an anime of Ghost in the
okay,
Shell
okay.
called Standalone Complex, or at least that's what the first season is called. And that is based on the characters from both of those things, assuming the end of the first manga didn't happen. It's really weird.
That's
But
so
the
cool.
series is also really awesome and a great introduction to the characters involved in both the manga and the movie. I highly recommend all things Ghost in the Shell, though there is some new movie that goes into the origins of one of these characters that I'm not totally sold on, but I'm still watching it, so we'll see.
Does it have Batcopter shark repellent?
What it does have is people hacking into the brains of cyber terrorists, so yes.
They're pretty similar.
Yeah,
I guess.
I'd say. Also,
Anybody get,
smart tanks, which are also always cool.
Anybody get vaporized? And little piles. They look like little piles. Of,
Yeah, a couple of times.
Dehydrated.
that's what we look like, I guess, as an
Have their
ashtray
cyber
fell
brains
over.
torn out of their skulls.
I mean,
so
what
that
those?
happens.
They were vividly colored though. That people were
I believe
different colors.
they were like purpley blue kind of
Yeah.
color, which we're all purple blue
Yeah.
at the heart, right?
Sure. That
Anyway, this
you
is
should
us
read Ghost in the
talking
Shell
because
just to find those parts.
We
Okay.
haven't. We'll find them.
Yeah.
We'll find them. Wikipedia.
John, we're over to you again.
So the last movie on my list is also a Batman movie. No, it's not. It's not Batman 66. It is Batman: Mask of the Phantasm.
John, I was going to ask you what the last on your list was because that was on my list.
That's really it.
that was literally
That's
on my
the
list.
last one. Oh, well, that's
Well, no, I had an alternative one in case this happened, and that's why I thought I was going to do the last one first. And so I was asking you off mic
all right,
what it was going
all
to be.
right,
I
all
want
right.
you to talk about this because I'm very excited about this movie.
Yeah.
Legitimately.
I'm not speaking up, but let us not diminish my excitement for this movie because Mask of the Phantasm is
Mask of the Fantastic.
probably my favorite Batman movie.
It's certainly my favorite Batman movie. My favorite interpretation of Batman still in any form as Batman the Animated Series.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like Mask of the Phantasm is the great culmination of that show, really. It to me is a perfect Batman story. I mean, it's about this masked killer that's killing all the mob bosses in Gotham. But what it's really about is that moment right before Bruce Wayne became Batman and the one moment of doubt he had about being the Dark Knight. And that's so amazing to see. And those flashback scenes are incredible. I mean, really, my favorite thing about this movie, honestly, is the score.
oh yeah.
I mean, it's the Batman stuff too. But I mean, the Shirley Walker score for that movie, I still listen to all the time. It's so
Well, does such a good job of kind of taking the Elfman stuff
Yeah.
and growing on it.
right, and it's got like the opera choir and stuff in it, and man, it's so. And there's the romantic, like the love theme of the movie is just beautiful. It's such a great. God, it's such a great movie. I watch that movie all the time because
Me too.
It's so well structured. It's so it's such a great, such a well written movie.
Oh, yeah.
For a children's film. It was released as a children's film. It played at kiddie matinees and stuff. But it's so complicated and emotional.
As opposed to a lot of the animated movies that would come afterwards, Mask of the Phantasm was released in theaters.
Yes, it was. It was supposed to be a straight-to-video movie until they saw the popularity of the show and said, "Hey, we might be able to make some money." They did not make some money.
They didn't?
No, it did
Which
not
is why
go well. That's why there are no
theaters.
longer. The next one that they made was Sub-Zero, which is also very good.
Great.
Oh, man, that was really good.
That came out straight to DVD, and so did Mystery of the Batwoman, which is the third animated series. Well, it's fine.
It was okay.
It's not nearly as good as the first two, because Sub-Zero also excellent.
Yeah.
But Mask of the Phantasm to me, is probably there's just what
Great little footnote on Mask
it's a
of
cool
the Phantasm.
mystery too.
The detective stuff Batman does in that movie is
That
great.
the episode of Justice League Unlimited, the epilogue episode that kind of wraps up Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
We see the return of what's her name as the
Andrea Beaumont.
Yeah. That was a cool little Mask of the Phantasm.
Yeah.
when I was watching that episode.
Yeah. Also, great Joker stuff in that movie. I mean, at the
man.
end when they're in the abandoned amusement park.
Yeah.
Mark Hamill
the
will always be
jetpack
my
is so
Joker.
good.
Yeah, the jetpack, and then Batman's punched him, and he's missing teeth and bleeding out of his mouth and stuff.
It was a little bit Dark Knight Returns-y.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it was it's.
Or Dark Knight Returns is a little bit Mask of the Phantasm-y.
No.
All right.
No, so Batman Mask of the Phantasm, of course, is.
Yes, that was legitimately the last one on there. I did put an extra one on there because I didn't want to have 3 Batman ones on there, which I'm not really that ashamed about.
What was sort of your honorary?
The last one, and I mean it's up there with all the other ones I put, was X-Men Days of Future Past.
Sure.
And again, not only is it a great movie, but what they were able to accomplish in that movie, resetting the first 3
Bryan
without
Singer fixing the X-Men
Yeah.
movies?
yeah, and in a way that I'm pretty sure lots of us have lost sleep over trying to fix that, and he's able to do that in a legitimately awesome,
Very
and
simply
true to
and
comics
in a,
movie.
In a, I mean, he didn't have to bend over backwards really to do it. Is what's amazing.
And you've got the Days of Future Past, which is a great storyline in X-Men comics, and it's still very true to that. It's still great. It's a great Mystique
Kind of,
story.
yeah.
I mean, I know they take liberties, but it's a great.
Oh, that Kitty Pryde stuff.
You're right,
Okay.
buddy.
We're just gonna let that
Okay,
sit.
I don't know if this has come up on the
Somebody
podcast.
hurt
but
your Kitty
my
Pryde?
issues with time travel as a whole, but okay,
This is the first they've been. This is the first they've come up. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm a stickler for time travel, people.
Yeah, you're a stickler for fake science.
You love Doctor Who?
Yes,
Then I'm sorry, your point is invalid.
but. No, but I can still enjoy these things and still be cognizant of the fact that, within regards to how a proposed time travel scenario would work.
This is where you always lose me because it's a proposed time travel.
I
It's
know.
as bullshit as anything else. It's made up.
Let me just say this: Days of Future Past works perfectly. Everyone who talks about it in the movie is wrong.
Yeah, see, this is a weird argument.
That you think that the script went
The time travel in that movie works. It's just everyone who talks about it is speaking about it incorrectly.
All right. Well, that's not a semantical sort of.
I
Divergence.
didn't follow that
Sure,
either, but I
sure.
mean,
So-
I know what you're talking about, but at the same time,
Yeah. At the end of the day, nobody cares.
Anyway,
so I'm going to stop talking
about the movie.
No, I was just gonna say that, like I said, it resets that, which is an amazing feat. It's still an incredible movie. You've got Sentinels, which we've been waiting to see for multiple movies. It's a great Mystique story, and it's. I mean, I feel like First Class was more a Magneto story, but then you've got a Charles Xavier story
This
in this.
is far more Xavier's story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it brilliant. There's that scene where he's gonna rip the plane apart. Magneto is, and that's awesome. I love the tie-in with JFK that maybe Magneto was. I don't know. I felt I walked out of that theater.
Bent bullet theory.
Yes.
One of the coolest things that was a tie-in with Days of Future Past was this. It was sort of like a quasi-documentary website that they put out beforehand that was like this basically dossier on did Magneto have anything to did the mutant known as Magneto have anything to do with the death of our president?
Right. Yeah. No, it was. It's
And I saw
so
that and
well
thought, what a
out.
great little spoof and little fun thing they did. And then they tie it into the movie, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh, it's great. It's a great movie. Yeah, there's no question about that. I mean, what's great is it's a great sequel to First Class and to the Singer movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing I really like, and this is one of my favorite things in comic movies, is
Halle
when
Berry returning her role as Storm.
Halle Berry. Any comic book movie with Halle Berry. anyone, including one that came out in 2004, I believe. No, just kidding. I rebuke that. I don't.
right.
But the thing I love in comic book movies is when there's a reference made subtly, and I get to be in the theater and I get to giggle to myself.
Yeah.
And then I talk to other people about it later, and they like that moment, but they have no idea what's
What was
happening.
this moment in Days of Future Past?
The moment where the unnamed Quicksilver
Yes.
says, "My mom used to date a guy who could bend metal."
Yes.
And all of us who read comics know exactly what Magneto does not know at that point in the movie.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was talking to somebody today at work about this movie and how great they thought it was. And he's like, that was such a fun line. And I got to tell him, I got to explain that to him and just watch his brain like fry. It was amazing.
Well, the other, there's also when you see Quicksilver's mother at the end of the movie, there's a look on her face when she
she's looking at the
sees
TV on
the
Magneto,
Yeah, that
and
also kind
and
of
a little girl there that nobody knows. And so great.
But one of
highly
my
enjoyed that.
favorite post-movie experiences of like seeing a crowd reacting to a movie was actually in Days of Future Past.
Really?
Oh, I know this story.
Yeah. We were sitting in the theater, the credits were rolling, and like all comic book movies these days, you got to sit through the credits to watch that stinger at the end.
Yeah.
Whether it's Howard the Duck or a setup for Age of Ultron.
Which are the two extremes.
But we're waiting for that, and there's a couple standing down at the bottom of the stairs, like at the corridor getting out of the theater. And the guy, of all people, is saying, "So why are we standing here?" And the girl of the couple, this is defying some nerd gender things that I was very happy to see this.
Yeah.
She says, "Well, we got to see what they're setting up for the next one." And the guy says, "There's going to be another one?" And I was just like, "Oh, thank you."
You just stepped between them and went, "Hi, Mike Ergoni."
Hi, Mike Ergoni.
That's so
There's this
awesome.
thing called Apocalypse. How's it going?
That's so awesome.
That is great. All right, so those are some of the best, some of the things to look out for. Now, unfortunately,
Yes.
in comic movies, there are some movies that maybe leave a little to be desired. You know,
John, I believe the term you're looking for are giant piles of shit.
I believe that was the term I was looking for. Thank you for that. So we've compiled a slightly smaller list to each of what are some of the worst comic book movies.
Okay. I'm going to say one right now, and I hope it's on all of our lists.
I mean, yeah, okay,
Yeah. X-Men Origins.
yes.
Yeah, Donovan?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
okay. Can we just talk about this one?
Let's just talk about that up front.
We talked about this, I think.
I had a few that I was ready to place in case there were some overlap that we could talk about.
I just want to talk about this as a round robin right now, this giant steaming pile of crap that is
It's
X-Men
a movie that gets
Origins.
worse the more I think about it.
And
Actually,
I've rewatched it twice now since owning it.
Why? Ouch.
Because I keep thinking, well, maybe there was some... No.
The thing
But
is-
Liev Schreiber's... No.
We talked about this
Liev
briefly.
Schreiber's pretty good.
Okay.
We talked about this briefly, that movie should have been what the credit sequence shows.
Yes.
That credit sequence where they're going through time, Sabretooth and Wolverine, is awesome.
When that credit seems, you're like, I just saw the movie. I don't
Yeah,
understand.
in fact, I
What
stop
else
it
is
there.
there?
When I show it to people, I'm like, well, watch this movie with me. And 5 minutes in, click, we're done. Everybody go home. Don't
the
think
fir-
about it. Don't do anything
the
else.
first scene is really good. The part that's origin.
Yeah.
Great.
Then the stuff with the war, fantastic.
Who wrote the original Origin comic?
Oh boy.
Do I have to go grab it off my shelf?
Go do that. We'll keep talking about.
What I might have brought up before, though, is somebody was saying that because Hugh Jackman had such a big part in, like, pulling that all together, and Hugh Jackman is such a nice guy,
Yeah.
he had such a hard time saying no to people, and that's why
Right.
things kept getting...
Right.
And, I mean, we've talked about this. There's a few movies, like X-Men 3, actually, where one of the biggest issues is how much they try to do...
I think Origin
in-
suffers, from the same thing. It's overstuffed with characters and subplots.
The original Wolverine Origin comic, which highly recommend, by the way, written by... Or the script was by Paul Jenkins, and it was drawn by Andy Kubert. The plot was actually done by Bill Jamis, Joe Quesada, and Paul Jenkins.
Okay.
So lots of people helping out with this comic.
Yeah, but that movie.
Not the comic, which it should have been. Like,
Yeah, I don't know if it actively should have been a direct adaptation of Origin, but it could have
closer
been.
to that could have been better.
There's tie-ins with Days of Future Past with Origins. I think the only one that's really not tied into much is the Wolverine.
No. I feel like the Wolverine is pulled more in Days of Future Past than Origins is. What are you talking about?
There's a bit of Origins in there.
All the Stryker stuff.
Yeah,
That's
I guess.
the biggest.
I mean, so much, and they use footage from Origins to
Sure.
show the Weapon
Yeah,
X
no,
experiment.
and I
you're
don't
not
think they show any from the Wolverine. Which, by the way, something I was going to mention with
You don't need to, really.
But there's the whole thing where his claws get cut off in the Wolverine.
But what does that have to do with Days of Future Past?
Wolverine in the future has the bone claws.
No, he doesn't.
What?
No, he has he has adamantium claws.
Well, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, here's one thing I was
He
going to
got
say.
adamantium on the. I don't
we
know.
we wrapped this up, but when is the cutscene at the end of the movie where we see Magneto and Xavier contact Wolverine in the airport?
That's the
What
end
is
of
that?
the Wolverine.
That's
like
the Wolverine?
That's the
Yeah.
legit end of the
Okay.
Wolverine.
That sets up
Man,
Days of Future Past.
Just
Yeah.
seeing that and then waiting
Oh,
for Days of
man.
Future Past to come out and then seeing how good that was.
I
that
lost
was-
my mind when they showed up. When I
Yeah,
saw them in
me
the theater.
too. And-
But enough about good movies, John.
Yeah.
Let's talk
Okay,
about
back to
X-Men
bad movies.
Origins because this movie is this giant pile of shit.
Gambit. Why?
This shit with Gambit,
Yeah,
the stuff with the Blob.
I really
Gambit is like the coolest.
I really
love
feel
him.
like its biggest problem is that it just has needless amounts of things. There's so many things in this movie.
Like, I
There's
love
not-
the bits with Ryan Reynolds as Wade Wilson, and God forbid we're going to see a Deadpool movie with him in it here pretty soon. But, like, what they did to the Deadpool character at the
Yeah.
end of that movie just makes my blood boil.
It's not great. It's not great. But even beyond that, what's interesting is, as bad as that is, still I don't think the problem.
What is the problem with that?
I said the problem is it's not anything. The movie's not. There's no story. It's just scene after scene of like, now this character's in it. It's the Blob. It's this. It's young Cyclops. It's that. It's over here. Xavier shows up at the end. It's this.
I told you about the guy I met who this was his
Will.i.am is in it suddenly right now for no reason.
This was his
Well, that
favorite
made
movie.
sense.
Oh yeah. You did
That
tell
was
me
such
about
a-
this.
Do you have
a
any
shocking
justification for that? But if you
Because-
just like montages of exciting things,
The movie is almost just a montage.
He didn't like First Class over Origins
what?
because First Class's timeline didn't fit with Origins.
Oh, go to hell.
I know,
go
right?
die.
Does he-
Really?
Whoa, wait. He's
I love not liking First Class is predicated
No,
on
no, no.
Origins.
But it
Is it
doesn't make any
only
sense
on-
if Havoc is this old in the 60s
Oh.
and if young Cyclops shows up in the 90s.
Boy.
Does he have? I want to see his bedroom wall. That's just a giant timeline, and he's putting pinpoints and
he's
all
just
over. It's
like,
like,
"Doesn't add
it
up."
doesn't fit.
String.
It doesn't
It
add up?
doesn't fit. He's
Ah,
written
boy.
numerous
So
letters.
everything post Origins makes zero sense to him.
God.
well, I think that's a good place to stop. If you're going to stop at X-Men movies, just stop at Origins.
Yeah.
I think
That's a
No.
perfect place
This is
to stop.
sarcasm. That was sarcasm.
Oh, boy.
everybody.
All right. Donovan, what's the first bad movie that you've got?
I don't know if you guys were thinking about this one. Have you seen the movie Steel?
Oh, wow.
With
Whoa.
Shaquille O'Neal?
I didn't even think about it.
Didn't
but-
even, like,
No,
I
yeah.
scrubbed that movie from my brain.
I'm so
I have,
sorry.
I have seen
I'm sorry
Steel.
for bringing that back.
I have seen Steel.
I try only to think about Shaq's good movies,
Like Shazam?
like Kazam.
Kazam, that's right. Kazam, I'm sorry.
That is such a bizarre movie.
That is such a terrible movie.
Well, no, but it's such a weird time when Shaq could number one star in a movie that Steel was a viable character to base a film around. It's so 90s. It's insane to me.
the image of him in that costume still haunts me.
well,
I've seen that movie, I think,
haunts you.
twice ever.
That
Once
that
by choice, and a second time unwillingly.
Because you were tied to a chair.
I was tied to a chair by Shaquille O'Neal.
I'm pretty sure that's a war crime.
Yeah.
So
Film career.
The Geneva Convention has a section about showing the film Steel.
yeah, specifically. That costume is skin tight metal. I don't know how that's possible, but he looks very like slim in it, which is odd. It's just it's so
Oh no,
weird.
he looks great in this movie.
Oh, it's so it's. I was trying to think of like if there's
He doesn't
a
move well
defining-
in it. He does not move well.
I was trying to think if there
Oil
was like
can.
a def-
Oil can.
a defining worst moment of that movie, and I think it's anytime Shaq speaks and anytime anything happens.
I'm Steel. Yeah.
It's so bad. I do not recommend,
I'm here
even
to
for a
save the day.
joke, watching that movie.
There are some movies that are so bad that you cannot even riff them as a la MST3K.
Yeah.
It is. Then that
They
is
won't even
definitely a
touch
bad
it. That's
movie.
how bad it is. Oh my
I'm
gosh.
actually
So-
curious to see if there's a riff tracks of Steel.
Steel? If there is, we'll let you know, everybody.
So Gorgoni, I mean, you mentioned X-Men Origins Wolverine, but what have you got on your list?
I mean, that was the biggie.
Sure.
But I don't think I can walk away with this without bringing up Batman and Robin.
Yeah, that was on mine
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Most lists I looked at, that was the worst one on every list.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of either of the Schumacher.
I love Forever.
See, and I know both of you defend Forever.
We're forever defenders.
But
Forever will be.
defenders.
I was just watching it the other day. It was on TV,
Oh,
and I watched about 15 minutes.
But
of
Batman and
Forever.
Robin is such
Which
a
15 minutes?
monstrous
It was the beginning.
piece of filmmaking. Like,
Yes.
it seems,
Skateboard in that.
there's so much. The
It's so-
Bat credit card, the ice puns. There's so much that's.
It's so
awful.
weird because it's not like the '66 show where it's being campy. Because there are parts where it wants you to take it seriously.
Oh my god! And those are the worst.
No, that's the weirdest part of it. It's not just a camp fest because that would be one thing.
No, what it
It's
is,
this
John, is a
weird-
toy commercial.
Yeah, its tone is all over the place.
The issue I have with that movie is they knew better.
They
right?
should. Yeah, they should.
Like, even though the first Schumacher one, the Batman Forever, is a little bit brighter and glitzier and more exciting than the previous ones, Batman and Robin, they think that they're like doing justice to these characters that they're destroying.
Yeah.
Again, the 66.
I don't know who thought they were doing justice to these characters.
Somebody had to. Why else would they make it? Because they're not doing it heavy-handedly.
Toy
They're not doing it-
commercial.
yeah,
It's so bad.
yeah.
It's
It's just
Clooney
very.
is-
I mean,
very
you've
bad.
heard interviews about Schumacher talking about this film.
I
more
watched.
than
I
either of
watched
us.
his commentary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
It's just him saying "I'm sorry" over and over again.
Not exactly.
Sobbing into a pillow.
I mean, when you talk about toy commercial, I mean, he talked about being concerned about the fact that toy companies were in script meetings, like executives from toy companies.
And, yeah.
Basically, the movie got away from him. Is kind of what it sounds like because he's a good director. I mean, he's directed a lot of like dark, serious adult films. I mean, he's not he's not known for doing. This is an anomaly in his career.
But no,
He's
you
not
talk
known for
about
Camp
the
Fest.
specific instance of toy manufacturers were in script
Well,
meetings.
what was interesting was when he made Forever, he was kind of left alone because people were like, I don't know, maybe this franchise is dead. And then suddenly they started paying attention because Forever made a lot of money. So they're like, holy crap, now we need to, like, Joel, you got to put in this and this and this. And you got to go over here and do this. And you got to build bigger sets and more colors. And
What I feel is the most tragic thing about this movie is, well, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze
yeah, it's pretty bad.
is so bizarre and horrible in that it's trying.
Iceman coming.
This is the weird thing. There's such a dichotomous thing about his Mr. Freeze in that he's making all of these awful ice puns.
So many.
So many.
All the
Every
ice
line
puns.
he says.
All the ice puns.
He is a walking action figure. He has the
all
dumbest
programmed.
goons.
And costume.
But at the same time, they're adapting the most tragic,
Heart of Ice.
heartfelt backstory of Mr. Freeze, which is the one from the animated series.
Yeah, from Heart of Ice, the episode. Which is one of
Exactly.
the best episodes of the animated series.
Oh yeah, I'm re-going through the animated series right now,
Oh,
and
it's so
I got to that episode and I was just like, oh my god, this show was for kids and it's amazing.
That's such a beautiful episode, really, and it's so God, that's a good episode. Yeah,
So somebody
I
knew
would-
what they were
was
doing in terms of the script of this movie.
Yeah, yeah,
At
yeah.
least like there's a little bit of just like, we know what we're talking about. Please believe us.
well, that's the thing.
But
It-
it's just buried in shit.
it's not. Yeah, it's not an example of where they're just like, well, we didn't even read any of the comics. They did pay enough attention, and Joel
To
Schumacher.
not just the comics, but like the Batman universe that was unfolding as
Schumacher talks on the commentary about being heavily inspired by the animated series.
And
I think he right now is working on a comic of what his vision of those Batman movies
And
were.
I'm really interested
I
to
would
see
love
what that
that.
would
yeah,
be.
yeah.
well, and I mean, there's so many bad things with that. There's a few like things I wish weren't in there so they could have been used later, like Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy. She's probably the best part of that entire movie.
But she's so off the hook crazy.
Sure, no, I get it because I mean,
I mean, she could be a good Poison Ivy.
The
is what
script
he's
and the
saying, yeah.
direction there were just like, oh, they didn't.
There are
they didn't cut it.
pieces that might have worked under wildly different
Not
circumstances.
Clooney.
Not
Clooney's
Clooney.
garbage in that movie.
He's so
and I
bad.
love George
No,
Clooney.
no. I believe we've said this between us, maybe not on the podcast, but he's a great Bruce Wayne.
Great Bruce Wayne.
But he can't turn off Bruce Wayne. He can never be Batman.
Because no matter what movie he's in, he's George Clooney.
Right.
I mean, he's a movie star in that sense.
In
He's
the same way
always
that
bringing
Christopher
Clooney.
Walken is always going to be Christopher Walken.
Yeah,
Clooney is always Clooney.
He's always going to have that swagger and charm.
Well, and
that's
one-
great in most of his movies.
One thing we didn't talk about is maybe the worst part about that whole movie.
Bane?
Is Bane.
Oh. Bane.
Yeah.
Bane, who can't even speak, but is supposed to be a super genius that somehow breaks Batman's back. I mean, obviously he doesn't in that
No,
movie.
I was going to say, no,
but
he doesn't.
like, if you
Not
read
at all
any
are they trying to-
comic, I mean,
Yeah.
if you read any comic, you know how awesome
or
Bane
once
is.
again, the animated series.
Every other interpretation of Bane,
Yeah.
whether it be
Yeah, they-
the Nolan movies, the animated series, the comic books, the video games,
Yeah.
Bane is a thinker and a planner and a schemer. And
For sure.
in this movie, they turned him into
A gorilla.
weird. There was literally a scene where he was dressed as a
I know.
gorilla.
They literally turned him into a gorilla and then put that gorilla in a gorilla
Well, you know what
costume.
happened? They mistakenly read some Flash comics and saw Gorilla Grodd and thought it was Bane. I think
That's it.
You saw the last
even
episode
Gorilla,
of
But
Fool.
even Gorilla Grodd is so smart.
Yes, he is.
He's brilliant.
Yeah, Batman and Robin.
So yeah, I could rage about this movie for a while.
Notoriously terrible.
We've watched the riff tracks of it.
Yeah.
And this is the guys from Mystery Science Theater 3000 have their own thing called riff tracks. I highly recommend it. They spoof and riff on movies, so you're listening to them making fun of the movie while you're watching it.
yeah.
They have one for Batman and Robin,
Mm-hmm.
and even while they're watching the movie, they're just like, we can't do this anymore. This
Yeah.
movie is so bad.
Yeah. It's such an oddity, really.
Especially after the first Schumacher, which, again, John,
Yeah.
you and I really like.
Yeah. Batman Forever is pretty cool.
It's a great movie. I will watch that movie every day if you ask me to.
How do you find the time between that and the 66 Batman?
I don't know, but I would make time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Be like, I go to work, I come home, I watch 2 movies, I eat dinner, I go to bed. That's,
Or do you wake up extra early, watch
Just to watch one.
the 66, go to work, come home, eat dinner, fall asleep watching the
if I
Schumacher?
watched the
So you're
66 one first thing in the morning, I would be the happiest person throughout my entire day. like Cesar Romero level happy from that movie.
well, you carry around your banana phone. I'm sure you'll.
I already have one.
So the one I wanted to mention is Superman 3.
Ooh,
Not 4?
Well, 4 is bad too. I mean, we could really talk about both. Anything after Superman 2. So, Superman the movie, of course, on my list of best.
I've
all my
only
favorite
seen
movies.
Superman 3 once, so I'm easily the
Superman-
least familiar with it.
Superman 2 also awesome. Both of those are really cool movies. Superman 3, they decided to introduce Richard Pryor into the franchise for unknown reasons.
Because Richard Pryor was hot back then.
I mean, yeah, but it's so bizarre. And so the majority of the film is about Richard Pryor.
Sure.
Just what you want to see.
Computer genius, Richard Pryor.
Computer genius Richard Pryor. You have not Lex Luthor, but you have Robert Vaughn as a Lex Luthor type. So you don't even have one of the Superman like rogues gallery.
Nah, why would you need that?
You've already
you-
seen 2 movies.
You have, due to some kind of contract dispute, Lois Lane exiting in the first scene of the movie.
Yeah.
And so he goes home to Smallville for his high school reunion where Lana Lang is there. Not a terrible idea necessarily. You then have evil Superman because they try to create kryptonite, and when they do so, somebody's smoking, and ash gets in the kryptonite, which turns him evil.
Sure. But not Bizarro. Evil Superman.
No, just evil Superman.
Like evil Spock.
Doing such evil things as straightening the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Oh, that bastard.
What a monster.
That's the worst thing he could have done.
Yeah, in one of my favorite scenes, there's the guy.
Why would you go to it after that? It's just a tower. Who cares?
All right. Tourism is dead.
There's a great scene where a guy is selling replicas of the Leaning Tower, and when he fixes it, he's like, no, I'm ruined. And then at the end, he gets a whole new shipment of straightened tower things, and Superman comes and
back
corrects it, and
and
he's like,
tips it, yeah.
no, I'm ruined again.
Did he
Nah."
throw
This
away all
time,
the other
Superman's
ones?
the monster.
It's so bad. There's at the end of the movie, they're shooting missiles at Superman in what looks like an Atari game that I'm pretty sure they released, just that exact game. Oh boy, is it bad! It's really bad. It's just, but 4 is really bad, but 3 is bafflingly bad.
But somebody-
I mean, in 3, the decisions they make no sense.
Here, I was told
4, I understand what they were trying to do, and they just failed.
Well, and John, you can maybe correct me on this, but I was told the other day that 4 was Canon's "we're going bankrupt" last attempt to
Yes.
get money. They needed 3 blockbusters,
That's exactly right.
one of which they got Superman, but the only way they could do it is if Christopher Reeve could
Right.
kind
Right.
of
They got the rights to
Use-
Superman, but only if they could get
use his
Christopher-
voicing and he get to choose what
Right.
what they're doing, but they had no budget for special effects.
Right.
After all these things, and so all the things promised couldn't happen.
Right.
Also, funnily,
Funnily?
strangely, and oddly, and
This movie
delightfully
going down a funnel.
enough, it is going down a funnel. One of those other 2 movies that they did. Do you know what the big great one was? Was
Off the top of my head.
I'll give you a hint. It starred Dolph Lundgren. And it was He-Man, Masters
of the Universe, of course. Yeah.
Also a big flop. And the third one, I don't even. Somebody was saying that it was he directed Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Toby Hooper.
And it was this kind of strange Mars Attacks-y kind of
Life Force.
Yes.
About the alien vampire.
Yes. Unfortunately for canon, none of
Patrick
those movies
Stewart's in that movie.
None of those movies panned out.
No.
I wonder why.
Life Force is actually a pretty sweet movie if you actually see it. It's
But
a really
made no
bizarre,
money.
No.
But made no-
It is about space vampires, and Patrick Stewart's in
Yeah,
it.
I'm on board.
It's a pretty
Made
crazy
no
movie.
money. So I'm sorry, canon, and that
No,
movie gives that. I mean, like you said,
Somebody bought Canon, and they're bringing it back actually now. That production company.
No
Yeah,
way.
they're trying to bring back Canon.
First
So you're
thing-
saying remake of Life Force?
and
Yes.
He-Man.
Yes.
I think it's only a matter of time before
somebody
we get
is
another
trying to make a
He-Man
Masters
movie,
of the
yeah.
Universe movie.
Really?
Yeah,
So
come on.
as we wrap this up, is there anything else we want to touch on in terms of the
Oh, are we
terrible
only
movies?
doing? Do you do 2?
No, I just did the one, but I mean, Batman and Robin and X-Men Origins were kind of the other things I had to
okay.
say.
Ones
mean,
we did-
Green
ones we did-
Lantern
ones
comes
we
to
did-
mind.
Green
Green
Lantern
Lantern. We
we've
didn't
talked
touch
about.
on Spider-Man 3.
I don't know if I'd put Spider-Man 3 in the same category as like a Batman and Robin or a Steel.
Why
or something
they
like that.
successfully did 2
It's
great
not,
movies,
It's not
and
an
then
abomination in the same way.
It's a huge disappointment. It's not that great, but it's
jazz sequence.
yeah.
Hey,
out of place.
he got evil and jazzy. That's
But here's
Clearly
okay,
what the symbiote
so
does.
That's some of the most
there's
Raimi stuff
two-
in that movie. Though,
there's
so I have
two-
to appreciate that as a Raimi fan.
2 for completely different reasons.
Yeah.
Howard the Duck.
Sure.
Ooh.
Technically a comic book
Yeah,
made into
yeah,
a movie.
yeah.
I'm not as offended by it because those comics aren't maybe what I'm.
Yeah, I'm sort of in the same boat as you, where it's
However,
sort of like,
it's
I
a
don't
pretty
have any
atrocious,
great love for Howard the Duck.
terrifying movie.
Oh, it's a-
terrifying.
it's a-
one.
it's a terror-
Any interspecies relations done so.
Hey, I'll not have you judge my duck love.
It's just done so casually. That's the part that disturbs me.
It's a very odd film for sure.
But the other one, and I have to say, when it came out, I really enjoyed this movie. As a movie, it's okay, but League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh,
Oh,
my God.
God.
I've got such a problem.
how
with
did
this
I
movie.
forget that?
How
That
did
movie
they-
is horrible.
That movie.
Why
and
did this have to be Sean Connery's last movie?
Oh God.
Sean Connery is
Perfectly cast, by the way. I mean, like that.
As Quartermain?
yeah.
what?
I think Sean Connery is a great Quartermain.
Sure, I'm just saying that. But then everything he
Atrocious
did with
film.
it
Yes.
is terrible. I was
Atrocious.
the one thing you notice in
Who
the
wrote and directed that movie?
I don't know who wrote it, but the guy who directed it was the guy who directed the first Blade movie, and I can't remember what his name is right now.
Interesting.
there's
Yeah.
some great moments in that.
He parlayed Blade into that.
There's some great moments in that. There's some fun things that happen.
That
in
is
that
a movie I have wiped from my memory, like you mentioned with Steel. I have wiped.
That's both
League
of
of
mine.
Extraordinary-
Both of mine. You're
Yeah.
welcome, both of you.
God damn you, Donovan.
Because I completely forgot about that. That movie's horrible, and I love that comic.
Yeah.
And that what
Maybe not how that comic ended. but-
again talking to
Let's
somebody
talk about the beginning of that comic
Again.
and what that movie's based on.
talking to somebody the other day about that because I was having a discussion that okay, what are the best and worst comic book movies, and I brought up League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He said that he used to read the comics, and the best part was that they were solving not huge problems. They were like just kind of there, and they were just doing what they did and helping people out. And then this movie
I
happens.
don't know. I don't actually know about that.
No.
Really?
In the second trade, they're stopping an invasion of aliens from Mars.
Yeah, and in the
I
first
never
trade,
got
wasn't
that
there
far.
like a giant blimp that was going to kill all of London and
Yeah.
stuff? It
But
was
all of
definitely
London,
like,
not the world. You got this weird.
well, that's
like-
pretty huge, though. That's not an
They weren't
everyday
stopping
problem.
bank robbers.
But they, yeah, they weren't stopping bank robbers. But the plot of the movie is just like such.
Put down
a
the money. The
huge-
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen's here.
And the other thing that is always so interesting with those is like
Never take me alive, Quartermain.
of that time. I mean, the villain, the spoiler of that movie is James Moriarty.
Yeah,
Where's Sherlock Holmes? Like we want to see.
that's in the comic.
yeah.
He throws Sherlock Holmes out the Reichenbach fall in the comic.
And he never comes back.
No,
Really?
not in that.
So in that continuity, they effectively kill
Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, that's why he's not one of the extraordinary gentlemen, because he would obviously be a
They don't touch on that in the movie, which is then you're like, why is James Moriarty
Right.
a
That's
Sherlock
yet
villain?
another reason the movie is not
I
good.
do
Can we
love
talk
his.
about gunslinger Tom Sawyer too.
Oh yeah.
Was that Macaulay Culkin?
No, that was not Macaulay. That was not Macaulay
I'm just
Culkin.
kidding. But yeah, that was
No, that movie's horrible.
It's a strange movie.
There are other bad movies. I mean, we didn't
There-
talk about Daredevil at all, but I don't really.
I don't. Once again, I don't put that in the same. I don't.
Yeah.
I think that's not a great. word, but
Daredevil
it's not in
it
the
came
same
out at the
category.
wrong time. Was a big issue in Daredevil.
Yeah, Daredevil.
There's the Elektra movie is legitimately abominable.
That's terrible. That is
I
terrible.
really like that movie.
really You list for me the redeeming qualities of the Elektra film.
I'm a huge fan of the color red.
Okay.
Oh well, then you love that and Daredevil.
Yeah, but I like Psy more. You know, I like
Sigh more than like.
Raphael's my favorite Ninja Turtle, which
Mine
means,
too, actually.
Psy was definitely what I was doing the whole time I watched that movie.
Yeah, it was like a
But,
joke on the audience. You know what else? Is she doesn't. Does she
Emote?
kill anybody? Well, you
I
don't
have no
need to
idea.
emote.
I
You
like
were-
Jennifer Garner and other
you were
stuff.
like
Yeah,
Not
sure.
that,
a
though.
ninja
I'm
assassin.
sad to see her in commercials now. I want to see her in like
Juno too.
things.
She was in Dallas Buyers Club with McConaughey.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
When that cover they just petered out.
I love any conversations
Yeah.
with just When we start our Jennifer Garner podcast,
Jennifer Garncast.
Jennifer Garner,
Jennifer Garncast.
yet another,
Oh my god!
yet another, yet another spinoff
That
of
is-
this show.
That
All right.
is absolutely. That
All
is
right, so
absolutely
we
perfect.
we've completely lost it. So I think it's about time to wrap up
Thank
this
you for
conversation
listening,
and
if you
turn
still
now
are.
to our recommendation segment. And Gorgoni, you want to kick us off?
Sure, I'll kick us off. I'd like to come at it with yet another webcomic.
Please.
For
You're just
my-
gonna flood this.
No, no,
into-
no.
I, no,
like
I'm
this.
No, it's good.
I
No,
need to
it's good.
rep.
It's
I
good.
need to
Somebody's
rep for the
listening
webcomics.
first.
Definitely.
And because this is the thing is like I'll get on the computer in the morning, like on days I don't necessarily have to get up and go to work, and I'll go through I have a list of webcomics that I check on a very
they
regular
bookmarked?
basis. I've got actually a subfolder in my bookmarks that is just webcomics.
That is
Wow.
commitment.
So the one I'd like to rep right now is Demon Hunters.
Demon Hunters.
Yes, John, you may be vaguely familiar with that title because it
Is
is.
this the Dead Gentleman?
Yes,
Okay.
this is made by the.
No, I'm familiar with this.
So there's a film company that I really enjoy called The Dead Gentleman, and one of their works from back in the old college days was a couple of films.
Their
called-
college days, not ours.
Yeah, not ours. We were in high school at the time, I believe.
Yeah.
Or just getting into high school.
Yeah,
But
thereabouts.
so they got Demon Hunters, and then the second one was Demon Hunters Dead Camper Lake. And these are both like weird horror comedies.
Parodies? Would you call them parody?
Yes and no. They take themselves seriously within their own universe, but they're definitely still comedies as well. I wouldn't necessarily say they're parodying anything specifically.
But they're parodying tropes.
Yeah, of tropes of horror movies.
Yeah.
But I believe what they call it is a comedy of terrors.
There you go.
So those movies happened years ago, and there's always been like a building interest in the Demon Hunters mythology and like that world among their fan base. And years later, after a produced RPG book and a couple of short stories online, they started producing a webcomic just recently. It actually just started up last year, like in the summertimey part of the year.
Okay.
Summertimey part.
Yes,
You know that's
and
everything,
it's
right?
kind of a reimagining of those original Demon Hunter stories from the movies they'd produced.
Oh.
It's a lot of fun. It's a kind of a urban fantasy story about a disgraced demon hunter who is trying to put his life back together and fight monsters while he does it.
Cool. All right. Donovan?
So I think last time I referenced Rachel Rising.
Yes.
Picked up the second volume of that. It has not ceased to be perfect. It is absolutely wonderful.
Excellent.
The art, the storytelling is just perfect. And like I mentioned, the first one, this woman named Rachel wakes
Keep
up
using
from.
the word perfect.
It is perfect.
It's perfect.
It is perfect.
It's perfect. It's filled with Bartlett pears. she wakes up from a grave and comes back.
Yes.
And to be honest, that's pretty much the only supernaturally kind of thing going on.
Cool.
And you get to know some of the characters of this town. Manson is, I believe, the name of the town.
Of course, it's called that.
Manson. And then the second one, it starts to meld into this much more engaging. I don't want to give anything away, but there's more supernatural elements going on.
Cool.
The deep backstory is like getting so rich. You're like, we want to like sit down and
Like a buttery richness, like rich Corinthian leather.
This is like
What would Ricardo Montalban think?
you would think that it was like French cuisine kind of rich. You know, lots of heavy,
It's like a bun cake.
heavy cream.
That is
sauces.
rich.
Yes. Anyways, Rachel Rising. Again, I've only read up to the second trade. I've got the third one in order. Don't worry.
Don't worry, fans.
I think-
you're holding your breath. Don't worry. He's ordered it.
I have not stopped, and I will not stop. Terry Moore, I'm a huge
Nothing
fan.
will stop him.
A huge fan.
Walls cannot hold him.
Yeah.
Chains will not contain him.
That's correct.
Try as you might, villains of the world, Donovan will continue reading this comic.
That's correct. So I wanted to give a brief update on that, but also I've been rereading Hush, the Jeff Loeb,
Batman, Jim Lee.
and Jim Lee. Oh
that
my
art.
gosh, the Jim Lee is one of the
Jim Lee's probably my
quintessential
favorite
comic
artist, really,
He's,
in
it's just
comics.
everything is so crisp.
I would say.
So beautiful. But what I like
John
and
Romita
what I
Jr. for me, but-
what I like and
What?
what I
Who was it?
John Romita Jr.
Oh, yeah. He's great, too.
Great.
Also, Greg Capullo, who works with Scott Snyder.
Okay, there's a lot of them. There's a few. That's why
We'll do an artist episode at some point.
But what I
and just this ooh and ah at the stuff we're looking at. That'll
what
be
I
fun.
love the most about that and what I miss the most about that, not only is an awesome introduction of a new Batman villain,
Yes, who's still around to this
but
day.
Jeff Loeb knows how to write the detective side of Batman.
Yes, he does.
Maybe better than anybody that I've read.
Scott Snyder.
But the thing is,
Scott Snyder, Danny O'Neill comes to mind.
But Scott Snyder doesn't do as much of that. The rich detective like back.
Read ye some year zero, sir.
All right.
Yeah,
All right, I
read
will.
ye some.
Yee. Thank you for the old timey.
I'm sorry, but like in terms of the Bible of Batman, I
Yeah.
feel like you can point to anywhere among Scott Snyder's run
Yeah.
and
Court of the Owls
proclaim, sir.
I just miss Jeff Loeb, and I know that
It's
he's
just becoming borderline religious at this point.
sure you're a
Batman
heathen if you
is our
don't read
religion.
it. I feel like I miss Jeff Loeb, and I know he's doing other cool things with
And the
Marvel right
Batman
now.
said unto them, "Swear to me."
I am the night. That's their final prayer. Is I am the night. But I just not. If you have not read Hush, and there's
No,
a
it's a-
sequel,
it's a-
Heart of Hush, I believe. Is,
There's a few things. There's Hush Returns.
yeah,
There's Heart of Hush.
Hush Beyond.
but start with
There's Hush Beyond.
No, that is a thing. That's
yeah.
Batman Beyond comics.
Check out Snyder's Batman Eternal. Hush is in there. There's a bunch of cool Hush stuff.
And if you've played the Arkham games,
Arkham Asylum specifically, I believe, is like where he gets a mention.
in Arkham City, I believe he's
Yeah.
in there as well. You will.
around.
It's really cool.
He's
it kind of enriches that.
John, what do you got for us?
This week I've got two. The first is Mark Waid's Daredevil, which is just cool. He's
At the
bringing it
beginning,
back. Huh?
at the beginning of his run.
Yeah. Just his whole run. He's still doing it now.
Yeah,
Um,
I just don't know where you're.
Fun side note: I was reading through some of my Cthulhu comics. Mark Waid did a couple of short stories in one of the
Really?
Cthulhu omnibuses I have.
did
yeah,
not know that. That's cool.
Respect.
Yeah, but no, his Daredevil stuff is really cool. He's trying to bring back the character to his roots a little bit. Make it a little bit more fun because it got kind of dark.
a little bit when everyone he loved started dying.
Yeah, and he went to prison and stuff. The secret ending was revealed. It got really dark. So he's trying to make it a little bit more fun.
Blah blah blah. Got really dark.
Whatever.
He's trying to make it more fun, like some of the early Daredevil stuff.
Sure.
A lot of standalone stories. They're really cool. The other one is an image book called Manifest Destiny, which is by Chris.
Oh, this is the Lewis
Chris
and Clark one.
Dunges and art by Matthew Roberts. Yeah, it's
Oh,
about
man.
Lewis and Clark and how the whole like discovering the Pacific Northwest was just a front so that they could sweep the country of monsters.
Yes.
That
all-
sounds amazing.
All the monsters between like the colonies and the Pacific Ocean are there. It's just a land of monsters, pretty much.
you have the
And
first trade of this?
I've got the first two.
Ooh.
Yeah. I'll bring them to the next.
Is there a Sasquatch fight?
They're gonna get there. Is what the
Sasquatch is the final boss?
because
Well, I mean, they're going to
because
the
he's
Pacific Northwest.
So it's
Oh.
legitimately based around like folklore
Sure. Yeah,
of
yeah.
the different places that
Oh,
they're
that's
going on their trip.
amazing.
And like all the soldiers are these guys who were like either imprisoned or whatever, so they're completely expendable should they be killed.
The red shirts.
And like Lewis is the expert on the monsters, and Clark is the badass with weapons and stuff, and
Nice.
Sacagawea is following them through the trees and like descending on monsters and kicking ass, and it's a really cool comic.
I'll have to borrow
It's
that.
called
Yeah.
Manifest
It's
Destiny.
called Manifest Destiny.
That sounds
Yeah,
amazing.
it's really awesome. If you like
I really want Bigfoot to be the final boss.
if you like alternative history with monsters, then I
Who
highly
doesn't?
recommend
yeah,
Manifest
come
Destiny.
on. That's the only kind of history I know.
So I think that's going to do it for this installment of Panel on Panels.
This issue, if you will.
Yes, this issue, if you will. Once again, I'm going to remind you to subscribe to us on iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at Panel on Panels. We're also on Facebook at Panel on Panels. And you can email us at panelonpanels@gmail.com. So
It's a lot of panels on panels.
Yeah.
No, not panels on panels. Panel on panels.
Oh, you're right. I
Yeah,
apologize.
You just
One L or no S and then an S.
He said panels on panels. We're gonna get a whole other. But you
Whoever
know what? They
owns-
can't reach us.
Yeah, but whoever owns panels on panels at gmail.com is
It's
going to
gonna
be
be
pissed.
That's going to be
Yes.
the guy who does like the nice oak paneling on
Panels
sides
on
of-
panels, yeah. He puts panels on top of panels without hurting the original panels. He's brilliant at what he does. Thank you, Scott.
So yes, Scott. So for Panel on Panels this week, I'm John Campbell.
I am currently Mike Gargoni.
And I will always be Donovan Eiler.
Keep reading comics, everyone. Remember, #Archie is our stalwart.